Hello, everybody. We're back. Monstark and me, episode number 47, brought to you, as always, by hate45.com and monstark.com. And any other advertiser that wants to throw money at us. I am me.
And I am Monstark, and I'm hot as hell today.
Goddamn right he
So,
is.
pardon the noise, pardon our
Um,
mess, pardon the noise in the background because I brought out the big guns today. It's
literally.
hot.
Literally.
Well,
Sun's out, guns out, right?
if you're not on the video stream, you should be.
Yeah.
You got to
So
witness
Monstark,
this.
tell us about that amazing new theme song that our listeners, audio listeners, undoubtedly just heard.
Oh yeah, I'm really excited about that. Uh, that was created by Tommy Meehan in he's my friend from LA. He's in the band, the wonderful band, the Manx, and he's in now Squid Pisser. Look for Squid Pisser because that's the new thing. It's awesome. It's like all kinds of crazy shit, masks and stuff. He's just an all around creative genius, and I love the guy. Love you, Tommy. Thanks again.
Yeah,
And
I was
we,
incredibly stoked to hear that. It's amazing, and
it's awesome.
it's yeah. I mean, I've always kind of like any theme song I've had on a podcast before. Bex and I actually had a podcast for a while that we called the Killer Bees, and I'll have to send you this. I don't think you've ever heard it, but I cut together an intro song, but it's just I've always used just like royalty free music, so it's amazing to actually
Mhm.
have something unique from an actual musician that's not something that occasionally you hear uh, in a documentary or something, and you're like, hey, I recognize that music because I know that they got it from this awesome free royalty free music website. So
Totally.
it's awesome, Tommy. Thank you. Um, God bless you and your tight gold spandex shorts that I. It's the only thing I know about you because of your Instagram profile. Is that you can really fill out a pair
You know,
of
in
tight
some ways
gold
that's
spandex shorts.
in some ways that's all you need to know. That tells you a lot. but but
It's
there's so
true.
much more there.
There,
No,
yeah,
he's awesome person. Um, yeah, I'm excited about that. And we both,
yeah.
well, I uh, I embellished that a little bit,
You embellished it. I may or may
and
not have
you may
embellished
also
it
embellish.
by the
I hope you
time.
do.
I'm going to give it a shot and see. I don't know how to apply many. Well, I know how to apply some vocal effects,
It's not
but it's
it's
not
not
all that
difficult.
hard. It's literally like a second and a half. I can probably figure it out. So,
Mhm. Ugh. Yeah, that's I don't know. It's great. Did you get you pumped, listener? Are you
yeah,
pumped?
I'm sure it did. I'm absolutely sure it must have. There's no way it couldn't. Um, so
Feels like the inside of our brains when it's time to record,
yeah,
kind of.
um, things are changing in the world right now. Things are starting to open up, and I really don't know how I
Mhm.
feel about it. Um, I'm going places now, and for the first time in like almost a year and a half, there are people in enclosed spaces who I don't know not wearing masks. There are cashiers at stores not wearing masks, and
I haven't seen that yet.
um, well, I went out over the weekend, and there are certain places that I think like grocery stores probably there's likely some policy, it's like we're going to continue wearing masks for the safety of our customers for a certain amount of time. But there are other places where they don't seem to have that policy in place. Um, I'm still really not. I mean, I've been fully vaccinated now for over 2 months. And so I very easy, like I could, if I wanted to, ditch the mask and start behaving like a normal human being again. But I'm really not emotionally prepared to take that step at this point. Um, and I don't know why. I mean, it's just I think I don't trust people enough to make that change. And I think in 4 days, I think um, California is opening up like completely, like no restrictions. Like I heard them talking on
Hmm.
the radio. I was driving back from the coast yesterday, and I just had the radio on, and it was like some post game San Francisco Giants show that was just on,
Hmm.
and they were talking about like right now, like I think they're allowing like 18,500 people into the stadium in San Francisco, and on the 25th, all of those restrictions go away, and they're going to be operating at like 100% capacity. So, you know, I don't know how many fucking people fit into a baseball stadium, but like, I don't know, 30,000 maybe? I don't know. It's
Hmm.
just, it's a crazy fucking idea. Um, and I get it. Things are getting better. Um, like we're, more than half of the population of California is vaccinated. Um, but I don't know. I'm just not mentally prepared for that change yet. And I find
Oh,
myself still like I've been almost like having to stop myself from like unconsciously glaring at everybody I see without a mask now, because that's my
I
fucking
believe it.
that's my immediate reaction is what the fuck is wrong with you? And it's like now people don't have
Even in
to
normal
anymore.
times, you have a hard time not doing that.
Yes,
So
it's true.
even without the
Um,
imminent threat.
that has been kind of a constant struggle with me is you can read my fucking expression incredibly easily. Like I don't have a very good poker face. Like and I'll find myself like reacting to people like just giving them really weird looks, and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't be actually doing that. That's not a very polite thing to do. So
You have resting truth face.
it's very true. Yeah, resting. What the fuck is wrong with you? Face.
Everybody knows where they stand with you
Yeah,
immediately, which is
with that, it's
probably not
unrelated.
good.
Well, actually, directly related. Bex told me never to talk about work on the podcast, but I won't talk about anything specific. I was in a we were interviewing
Good.
somebody for a possible position, um,
Uh,
and after like very shortly after the interview, that person emailed my manager to say that I don't know what exactly happened there at the end, but from the look on both of your faces, uh, right at the end of the interview, I know that I must have done something wrong. So I don't know. It is so, and I just remember all I was doing was like trying to smile politely and just put on the like, you know, I'm going to be extra pleasant because I'm talking to somebody I don't know thing that people do when they're at work.
yeah.
And I don't know. I guess like I must have made some weird face at the
Well,
very end of it that she interpreted both of us. And it sounds like we dodged a bullet basically, because people that are like,
uh,
I don't know if I said something that you, but you just seem to be people that want to like kind of put their insecurities onto you because you made a weird noise or made a weird face or some weird shit like that.
yeah.
Um, but it was weird. I was
I
like,
I I
okay,
feel I feel like I've seen this on you at like more like in a work environment or something like where there's
oh
like random people around. I feel like I've seen this what you're talking about.
yeah.
where
Yeah.
it's like, I gotta like, I don't whatever else is
I
going on in your head, it's like disconnected from like I just gotta get through this thing.
yeah. I've found myself, and I feel a little dirty every once in a while. I can play the bullshit game really well, and
Uh-huh.
I just kind of have this ability to kind of put on a different persona in work related situations where I'm incredibly pleasant and happy about everything, um, regardless of how I'm feeling at the time.
Hmm.
I just uh, I think it's what I got the most out of my college experience was just how to bullshit really well. Because I didn't
A
do a hell of a
lifelong
lot of
skill.
work there. yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and honestly, one of the best fucking skills for like you know for people that work a living is how to just be completely full of shit and make people think that you care about what they're saying. I think it's
How to
just like
win friends
flattering.
and manipulate people.
Yeah, it's how to stroke the right ego, basically.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Well, I don't know. I I don't know that like sort of on its face, it's like harmful and fake, but it's how I can embrace that more now than ever.
I think the only
Just,
people who are
just
allowed, to be, I think in like business environments, most people that are just like completely blunt are asshole CEO sociopaths. Everybody else has to kiss ass a little bit. It's just the pecking order of things, I think.
yeah. There's a there's a there's like status stuff, which
Hmm.
I don't. I never felt like I played that status thing. Like I never thought that anybody was. I don't know. I think I had I've always had like sort of been at odds with like hierarchical like
You have a
work
natural,
environments.
you and I think, both have a natural aversion to titles.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
like
and
they mean so much to some people. And it's just like, is what I'm doing from day to day going to change? No? Then call me whatever the fuck you want to call me. I don't care. Just pay me and tell me what to do, and we're fine. Like,
uh-huh.
titles have never meant anything to me. And I don't think to you either.
No, because like my status isn't wrapped up in anything
Right.
like that.
Right.
The only thing I care about is like status as a creative force, really, and and like interpersonal stuff.
Yeah.
Generally being a good person, but like, and let me clarify, like I embrace the doing no harm part of it. Like I'm not gonna
Right.
impose myself on like we've talked about before, talking about certain things where people just get uncomfortable or just like taking people down a road that they just can't go. I've tried to work on that, like not even just acknowledging this. Actually, this is goes right along with something I kind of have recently decided that I am. Well, this is my. I've danced around this, danced with this for years and years, but like right now, I've decided I'm not going to, or I'm going to try to not discuss political anything with anyone, even if I agree with them, because I live in too much of a gray area to really like connect with most people's stuff, and I don't want that's like, the last thing I want is to that for that to get in the way of anything that's otherwise like a quality connection. So,
Right.
I mean, you're a different story. I'll talk to you about anything, but just in general, like like I've already done that with family and some close friends and like stuff. Like I just there's no need for me to do that. My life is not does not revolve around that stuff, and so I
Right.
just decided, even with people that I agree with, ostensibly, I'm just not going to go there. as much as possible. I might come off as a complete idiot or just like a, somebody who's not paying attention to the world at all, but it's fine. That's not where I'm not gonna pour myself into that because that's not where I'm gonna benefit the world. That's not
Right.
where I'm gonna connect with
Right.
people. I'm not willing to like make that my entire life. So I'm just gonna focus on things that I can actually do and then just kind of skirt that. And maybe it probably sounds stupid and uh lazy and backward to people who are really involved in politics. But you guys do it. You do that,
Right. Right. I
you
mean,
know?
it's like that is the that is our cross to bear, as it were. The I mean, it's
Yours and mine, or you as your like
our, as
political folk.
in people that like to yell about politics. Like
Okay. Yeah.
that's our cross to bear. Um,
Yeah.
I feel like uh, I don't know. I'm paying a little less attention right now than I probably should be. Um, it's I'm trying not to get too comfortable in the Biden utopia, uh, which of course it's not. But it's it's just like I. It's like when you know people who, I think this is when social media is really getting dangerous because you're finding out all these things about people you only kind of know. It's like
Yeah.
posting stuff about, with all the mask law changes, businesses basically being allowed to say, like, regardless of whether or not you say you're vaccinated, we want you to wear a mask inside of our store. People calling that like discrimination and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. Like, this is why I'm happy having a friend group that I can probably count on, one hand, maybe one and a half. Because it's like, when you like just have a lot of like acquaintances and shit, or if you're one of those people that like friends people that you don't know all that well, this is what you start to discover about people, and you're like, no, I can't, I can't, I can't deal with all of this. It's just
Like
too
you think,
much.
yeah, you'd rather leave it undefined
Yeah,
than have to know these things sometimes. And then
exactly.
I don't know.
And it's like it's difficult because I don't want to paint with such a broad stroke. It's like, there are really good people in the world that have some really fucked up views on things. And it's like, it's that one stance does not necessarily define them. Um, Chances are, if they feel
Yeah.
this strongly about something, they believe that they are fighting the good fight.
Right.
So their motivation is kind of pure in some way. Like, they're not trying to be insufferable assholes. Um, they just are to me because they have some really strange views on things. But it's the I think that's what makes this whole past year and a half so complicated, is that everybody feels that they are trying to do the right thing. It's just the right thing to them is wildly different than the right thing to the rest of the world or to
That's
other people.
that's a great way to put it. And I like to keep that in mind would be a great thing for everyone to do. That that person probably has they're fighting because I don't well, there's that and there's the fear thing, which is huge too.
Yes. Yes.
Which is
Very
like
true.
that's like a selfish impulse and causes problems. But yeah, for sure. It's like, everyone that's the thing. Like everyone is like, don't you see? Don't
Mm.
you understand? Don't you get it?
Wake up, people. The rallying cry of a
Take the red
generation.
pill, man.
Wake up, people!
I
Yeah.
love that everyone is talking about waking up. I've woken up, like you need to wake up, the
Mm-hmm.
country needs to wake up and see.
Get
Everyone's
woke,
saying
wake
this.
up. Yeah.
And everyone feels like they have awakened or they've taken the fucking red pill or whatever you want to
Mm.
put it. Like everybody feels like this now. Like everybody feels like they have some inside info or like some secret knowledge that people are just missing. Uh
Well, I said, it's like the reality, like the world is turning into an augmented reality game. Like we've said before,
yeah,
it's like everybody
yeah,
feels that, like, oh, if you follow the fucking clues, if you connect the dots, if you do all
yeah,
these things, then you'll see what all of this really means. Um,
totally.
because everybody wants to be in on something. Everybody wants
Yeah.
to, like, oh shit, like now I get it. It all makes sense now. It's
Yes. Well, it's like we've always suspected it, and
mm,
now I really put it together. Actually, and everything's conspiring to spin that that web around everything too. Like everything's all media is conspiring toward this. It's like I just thought of for example, like the Elisa Lam documentary
mm-hmm,
where we talked about it a couple times. Really creepy story where she was like this this young lady went to LA and just like disappeared, and for anybody who hasn't seen it, disappeared, and then as it turned out, they found her in the water tank on top of the building of this seedy hotel. So it was like this really I was creeped out by that a lot when you first described that to me. And uh that the recent documentary we both watched, well, not recent now, but um it's like if they had it's like what we're suffering under now is like the editing of everything to like save the big reveal to the end. Like in that documentary, if they just told us, like made it clear, hey, in the first 5 minutes, uh spoiler alert for anybody's, but if they made it clear that, oh yeah, she was in the tank, but it was not closed, right?
right,
Like
right.
it was open, so obviously she just jumped in, she couldn't get out. um if they had done that up front, it would have been a much less creepy, much less, labyrinthine thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like now, like everybody is kind of like all media is conspiring to show people this, like to like sort of hide the end, of things, and like hide what's the underlying purpose of things.
Yeah,
And I'm not saying it's all intentional, but they're just like, they're selling stuff. Like those people made a documentary and they made it
yeah,
really like the Sasquatch one. Like they
mm-hmm,
made it seemed really, really, really weird.
yeah.
And it wasn't so like unearthly as it seemed. So I think
Well,
that's what's happening. Like we're
but
just
again, it's like another. Well, with the Elisa Lamb thing in particular, um, that was yet another example of people wanting to be on the inside of something. And
yeah,
um,
yeah,
there's another documentary series on Netflix called "Don't Fuck with Cats," which
right.
is so goddamn disturbing. But it's the the phenomenon of like people gathering together in Facebook groups, it's like, especially like, in the true crime community. It's like, sharing, you can get so much information thrown at you so quickly. Um, and when you're actively trying to connect the dots, you can see connections in things that may not be connected in any way. Like the Elias Lamb documentary, like, oh, let's call out this fucking like death metal musician because death metal is scary, and we know that he was at the Cecil Hotel once. The fact that it was a year prior to when this happened and he wasn't even in the country at the time, doesn't matter. We're going to destroy his life anyway. It's
Yeah.
like there's it's a dangerous time for information and fact checking and uh all of these things that people don't pay a hell of a lot of attention to right now, you know.
Right. And again, it's like the thing, like everybody feeling like they're awake,
Mm,
and everyone needs to wake up. Well, everybody feels like they have the right information, they have the good stuff,
right.
and uh, I mean, it leads to things like, um, well, going to it just leads to like weird where that this is part of why I don't feel like I fit in anywhere when it comes to like you know the workings of the things on the world stage and the workings of like everyday like all political stuff. It's like everybody's just kind of suffering under uh either bad information, lack of information, or just like uh a bubble,
Yeah.
mostly a bubble. and
Yeah.
and
I
it's not
mean,
always that bad, but it's the fact is it's like it's still a bubble. And um yeah,
it
I
means
don't know.
like the ability to curate information, the ability to, the algorithm universe that uh, Facebook and Google and everything use to serve you information, um, basically means that you're not often presented with a lot of opinions that are contrary to your own. Because data mining and profiling and everything has become so incredibly advanced that uh, companies know what you like, what you're interested in. They know where you fall politically, just because information is being collected and shared everywhere you go. And it's like, yes, there are changes being made. Like uh, Facebook and iOS have their own, like they're just going through this whole thing where like um, Apple is sharing a whole lot less information with Facebook about their customers. Um, so, like, in an attempt to improve users' privacy, um, California this past year passed a law in which if you are basically if you're collecting any data on the people visiting your websites, which of course every single website in the universe is, you have to now show a little banner on your browsers to anybody in California saying, we collect this information. Do you agree? Yes, no. So everybody in California spends half their time like clicking accept cookies buttons on every single fucking website that they visit now by law. Um, I mean, it's all good that people are trying to like look out for user privacy, but the damage is kind of already irreparably fucking done. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's, for the new generation of people getting online just now in 2021, maybe a little less of their data will be tracked, but they're going to find a fucking way around it. I mean,
hmm
it's
and I
technology, it's what they do.
Yeah, and the question is, I guess, like how uh I mean, are you worried about your personal privacy? I'm not talking about like identity theft, but are you worried about that at all? Because I feel like it's like you said, it's gone. It's just there's no
Yes and
putting
no.
that back in the bottle. Like
Um,
it's too late.
as far as corporations having my information, not really. I mean, it's like like what you were saying. I'm when I get notifications that like my email was part of a big data breach or something like that, I get concerned about those things because it could affect me like financially or whatever,
Sure.
with something like identity theft. But as far as them like knowing, like, I mean, I'm a fairly open book as it is, and it's like there's
Yeah.
not like, if Amazon wants to, you know, sell somebody information about the fact that I bought like what is ostensibly a hemorrhoid donut for my chair because my ass started to hurt like after sitting there all day,
Uh,
and like, it's like, okay,
Hemorrhoid
fine,
prevention donut.
right,
That's what it
it's,
is
but it's like,
for you.
they know so much about so many people. It's like, yeah, somebody's gonna, Google is really interested in me right now because over the weekend I searched for like what are signs of an enlarged prostate. So it's like, oh, maybe he has this and that. It's like I'm pretty
You're
used
getting all the best
to,
ads right now.
yeah. It's like, um, there's, is there a DoorDash for prostate exams? Like we'll send somebody right to your house. They'll be there in an hour with a pair of gloves and some lube, and we get you all taken
I,
care of. I mean,
I think that involves someone in your household and a couple of YouTube instructional videos
right, exactly.
and like really
Exactly.
quick. It's what is it? What was that thing where the quiz or the test you take to like become ordained to become a minister? There's
Right.
probably like a
Yeah.
prostate exam test you can become ordained as a
I've been
and just give
ordained as a
them
proctologist.
just yeah, just for that. I mean, you know,
I scared one of my friends
for fun and
yesterday.
profit.
I
Hmm.
have a friend that works in like he works at OHSU, um, and so we've been friends for 25 years, and we tend to share like pretty horrible things with each other pretty regularly, about like,
Hmm.
getting more fiber in your diet and all these kinds of things. And I texted him
Sounds
over the
wonderful. I'm
weekend
glad
and
you
I'm
have
like,
that. Glad you have that outlet because I'm not sure I could,
yeah.
how much
I
of that I
texted
could.
him. I'm like, I think I may have an enlarged prostate. And he's like, have you checked it yourself? And he's like, you're old when you're texting your friend to ask if he's stuck his finger up his own ass and you're not actually joking. um, I'm like, I don't even know how exactly I could even do that or what I would be looking for. And
Uh,
then I wrote back and said, and before you even ask, I refuse to ask Bianca. Once a year on my birthday is more than enough for her. Which is, then I followed it with the like drum dum gif, and he stopped talking to me at that point. So it's like, uh, but
uh,
yeah, getting old is fun. I mean,
Now I know what
it's
to get you for your next birthday.
exactly. Um, but no, I mean, I don't like. I I think that you know treating human beings like buy buyable, sellable data, you know, shit is inherently wrong and evil, and shouldn't be done. But I don't really give that much of a shit about people collecting my own data. I mean,
Mm.
I'm thankfully like, I run, um, you know, a lot of like ad book software and shit, like, so that I know that, they're getting a decent amount of information from me, but uh,
Uh, I mean,
I'm not seeing the ads that they're trying to serve me because of that. It's like I know they're
yeah,
gathering my data, but I'm not seeing a lot of the results of the data they're gathering because I run ad block on everything.
right.
So,
I'm trying. Well, yeah, that's probably a good idea. You'd be annoyed, I think.
well, but the problem
I've got
is when
some
you
annoying.
work in marketing and you run ad block on everything, it sometimes affects your ability to do your job
Mhm.
because it's like I forget that I'm running ad block, and when I'm looking to see if our ads are displaying on places and I don't see them, and I'm like, fuck, that's I'm so used to running ad block. Now I actually have to like be able to see ads. So
I thought you were gonna say it affects your will to do your job because you're like,
that too.
what am I? I'm like throwing stuff out into the void. But
I mean,
I,
at a certain
I,
point, I think we're like at a certain point, I feel like we're only going to be able to digitally market to like people over the age of 60. Because eventually people are going to get technologically savvy enough to use browsers that protect people's identities and have ad block and all this stuff included. Um, like browsers like DuckDuckGo are becoming more popular because they don't sell your information. So eventually it's like the only people we're going to be like, doing email marketing for are people old enough to like fall for that bullshit. It's like
yeah, it'll just sort of fix itself. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not terribly. I was wondering about that with you because you're not. Um, you've made an effort to hide your identity. Uh,
yeah, I'm
Mostly,
more interested in
and
hiding
I'm kind of out
online
there.
from people that I know.
Yeah.
Like
Okay, that makes sense.
it's there are I'm not all that interested in reconnecting with like the majority of people who I'm still interested in keeping in touch with, I'm in touch with. There aren't many people that I'm still kind of like interested in having some sort of relationship with that I don't already have some sort of relationship with.
Right.
Um, and it's like, oh, I'm so and so. I went to school with you X number of years ago, and also because there's one I've talked about him before. There's one kid that I grew up with and was friends with through high school who I just cut out of my life one day, and he still once every couple of years tries to find a way to reach back out. He's called places that I used to work before trying to find me. Um,
Jesus.
and I'm like, but even before that, I'm like, that's not like why or when I started going by different names online. Um, I don't know. It's just like there are a lot of people who I used to know. I used to spend a lot more time online and be active in stuff like live journals and all of those things. And at some
Right.
point, I just said I want to live less of my life online. And, I got in touch with the people that I kind of wanted to get in touch with. And there are not many other people who I'm that. And also, I've worked long enough to know that, like, you know, people are searching that shit. It's like potential employers, like, people are looking to find you online. I know that like whenever I've done hiring, one of the first things that I've fucking done is like just search for people online to try to get an idea of like, who they are a little bit.
Of course.
And if you're in all of your fucking Facebook photos acting like a jackass, I'm putting that to the other side. So, kind of knowing how people behave online and that it's not just your closest friends and family that are keeping tabs on you. I'm like, well, good luck fucking finding me. Like, it's like I've audited my online footprint a couple of times and I'm fairly careful about it. So,
Yeah. It's good. I've just embraced having, and not that there's like it's that anything's that embarrassing or anything, but uh, when I started doing reaching out more with art
mhm.
years and years ago. I mean, um, I that kind of that's when I just kind of decided, I'm just gonna put stuff out there.
Yeah,
Like
you kind of have to have like
I'm
a come to Jesus moment with that kind of stuff
Yeah,
when you're
yeah,
doing public stuff.
because
And
because it's not even like I just didn't want to have to worry about it, and I'm like, this is who I am. You know, anything I do, I'm proud of. Anything I say here, I'm proud of.
right, right. And
I'm
and
not
there
like
may be
we're
a
looking to like
point,
hide anything.
yeah, and there may come a point, it's like if I ever do get off my ass and write the book that I want to write, if I ever kind of follow through with some of the stuff that I've wanted to do online, then there may come a point at which I do kind of have to put myself out there. Um,
Mhm.
but I don't know, it's not something I necessarily look forward to because I really, it's like I'm pretty fucking out of touch as it is now. Like, I don't like I don't spend much time on social media at all. And it's
Yeah,
it makes things difficult sometimes. Like I don't know what's fucking going on in the world. Um, I'm pretty old and out of touch, but it's like, oh well, you know, shit
I
happens.
think it's probably good for you.
Yeah, I mean,
I've been
it's
so
like I used to spend most evenings, several years ago, sitting on my couch in front of the TV with something going on the TV, with my laptop on my lap, and I'm doing something else there. So it's like I'm consuming like three or four different sources of like stimulus coming at me that I'm kind of trying to keep up with, and I'm not taking anything in. And
Mhm.
it's like it just kind of happened where I was just like, focus on one thing at a time, try to be a little more mindful of what it is that you're doing. Um, and it just is a little bit less chaos,
yeah.
because it's
The
like, it's hard to be doing too many things all at the same time.
I think that we're just everyone thinks they can do that and be good at all of it, but it's
Right.
not. I don't think that's true at all. I think you're just doing everything badly at that point. And you're I mean, yeah, you can like on a surface level kind of engage in all these things like that, but there's a huge and maybe this is why everybody's chasing like meditation and things these days because like there's a huge benefit I think to like long focus activities or long focus kinds of which is basically meditation when you get
Mm-hmm.
into like art or something, or if you're just like focusing on one reading or something. It's just um without chaos and distraction around like that. That's I think it's important, and the
We've
world is not, it's trying to get us to
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
break our attention into a million pieces.
I think I may have talked about it before, but I used to have this agreement with an old landlady that, if I watered her garden a certain number of times per week, it was like I could save a little
Mhm.
bit on rent. So I used to come home from work and go outside and just like spend a half hour just going around the garden, watering plants and everything. And there was something about that activity that it was so it, there was something about just standing there doing that where after a couple of minutes my mind would just kind of go blank, and that was kind of the only thing that I was focusing on. And it wasn't any sort of like active meditation, but it became this very kind of meditative action where it was just like I wasn't thinking about anything else. I didn't have my phone in my hand. I wasn't talking to anybody. There was nobody else out there. It was just kind of like doing this incredibly simple task. It would just make all of the noise in my head, all of the like, residual like anxiety or stress that I was carrying home after work, that would just kind of go away. And that's why I loved like, float tanks so much, because
Mm.
it was that there was literally no stimulus, like nothing to focus on. Um, no, nothing shiny trying to grab your eye. You can't hear anything. Um, that lack of stimulus is like, it's just calming. And like when we went to the coast yesterday, it's like I don't do a hell of a lot when we go to the coast. It's like I'll find somewhere like on a rock to sit down, and I'll just like stare at the ocean for a while, and like that's kind of all I'll do, because it's like I don't necessarily go there to do stuff. I go there because it's, the only thing that's really vying for my attention is like just watching the ocean and stuff. Um,
Mhm.
so it's like I I for somebody that spends as much time in front of a computer as I do, I really just value peace and quiet, and uh, like just the older I get, the more valuable it becomes to just kind of
Mhm.
not have anything vying for my attention.
Yeah, 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 and you have to make an intentional effort
Yeah.
to do that.
And I think that's why I've always kind of like struggled with, you know, we talked about it last time, like, promoting my own shit is like, and we talked about it before, is like I'm sort of, in many ways, I'm kind of like a walking contradiction, which is like I don't really like drawing a lot of attention to myself, but I also do a lot of shit that draws attention to myself. It's like I, have a lot of tattoos. I, have anti-fascist shit that I wear. It's like a lot of the stuff I do sort of is screaming like, "Hey, look at me," but it's also like I really don't want that. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I'm kind of in some weird way encouraging it just a tiny bit. I don't know.
Do you secretly want interpersonal attention, you think? Maybe
Mm,
not like online stuff because that's shit show, but do you secretly want just like people to like suddenly everything you do blows up and everyone's you, pick like people who are kind of aware of culture, like they know
right.
you. You think you'd like that? People would say, "Oh, I love what you do. Oh, that thing that you did, that was great." Or
Like, I wouldn't want. I mean, I've thought a lot about that scenario, because in everybody's fantasy world, you always think about like, well, what if? Like, what if the shit that I did suddenly people started paying attention to, right? Eh, Like, I I don't. I mean, if like, fuck. I really don't know, because the shit that I do is people are going to fall like with, particularly like with like the, the t-shirts and everything. People are going to fall on one side or another. There's not going to be much in the middle.
oh,
So I
yeah,
wouldn't want
yeah.
necessarily want a whole bunch of fucking rednecks coming out being like, I know who you are and I fucking hate you, you know. um I wouldn't mind like, some positive feedback on shit. It's like, I like to hear people who've listened to our show and have feedback on it. It's like I just heard from uh a friend of mine that I don't talk to a whole lot nowadays, that finally caught up with the podcast, and he had a very kind of like similar reaction to your friend, which is like it made him start thinking about doing this. and that he enjoyed it, and it's always awesome hearing that. So I enjoy getting the positive feedback. At the same time, it's like it would fuck up everything that I kind of have going right now. It's like if all my shit blew up and it was like suddenly I couldn't you know just be able to communicate with the people who I enjoy communicating with online. It would kind of decimate that entire thing that I have going if suddenly, like, I would be comfortable with it if, like, I could separate it from everything else. But when it's completely commingled with, like, your own shit, um, it can just throw everything into a bit of a disruption. It's like why people have, like, dedicated, like, like I have all these, I have like an anti-fascist social club Instagram or something like that. If one of those like blew up, cool, because that doesn't necessarily ruin my own kind of personal online profiles that I talk to people on.
Yeah.
But it just like I would have to separate. I would have to like really separate out those online lives, because if all of the stuff I use now did, I just wouldn't want to be online anymore. I would just be like, I don't want to touch that. I have a hard enough time just keeping up with, like, my store at the level that it is now, where it's like, when somebody has a problem with their order, it's like, it's like, well, fuck, that's take time out of my day. Somebody is like, I need to change my shipping address because I fucked up. It's like, well, hopefully it hasn't gone into production yet. It's yeah. If it blew up to the point where I could have somebody else manage it all for me, cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now we're talking about like the business
Right.
part of that, like,
Yeah.
yeah, that comes with an amount of kind of pain in the ass stuff, but just like strictly like if I don't know, something, say you just you were attached to something and you did something and you're like,
Right.
suddenly people are, they know
Like if I
you
became the
did it.
next Damn Daniel or something like that,
I
if like
I
you did
don't
something
know what that is, but I'm
incredibly, it
assuming
was
it's
this
probably a wonderful
it
thing.
was, it was just like, when you get these random memeable events that happen in the world, like Damn Daniel was like, there was some high school kid who wore these like, he wore these really clean brand new like white Vans to school one day, and his friend did a video of him and was like, damn Daniel, like killing him with the all white Vans. It was just some random ass video that some high school kid took of his friend, and it just blew up. Like suddenly he was that guy. Jay-Z basically name checked him in a song. He got, he was on the Ellen show. He got lifetime worth of
Oh,
free Vans. Everybody knew, he just became uh basically notorious overnight for just wearing a pair of shoes to school.
mhm.
It's like that kind of thing happening to me would terrify the fuck out of me.
Yes, that's unintentional, and you don't even have the benefit of like people knowing that you're capable of
Right,
creating
right,
something. It's
right.
just like, oh, that fucking guy.
You immediately become the green girl. Is that it?
The green girl, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, right. Because then, even if he did something years later,
Exactly.
after going underground for,
It'd
yeah,
be
be like,
like,
oh
damn
yeah,
Daniel
that's
guy saves cancer. Like, cures cancer. It's like, fuck.
totally
It's
your
like
first that thing, and then
it's the John Lilly thing. It's like John Lilly, he's the guy that created the flotation tank and all this stuff. What everybody
uh,
knows about John Lilly
oh
is the experiments that he did with the woman and the
yeah,
dolphin. That's what everybody knows John Lilly for. Is
yeah,
that he did some questionable things involving a woman and a dolphin in a
I
tank.
think the dolphin did the questionable things technically.
Yeah, but that story has become. It's like I heard somebody like randomly talking about it on YouTube the other day, and they were talking about how like the woman was giving the dolphin hand jobs and shit, which is like, no, I think what actually happened was the dolphins are incredibly rapey creatures, and the dolphin formed an attachment with the woman and was trying to sexually gratify himself via the woman in the pool. So
Mhm.
it's like, but that's the thing. It's like John Lilly's forever going to be known as the dolphin guy, um, despite all of the other like academic things that he did over his career. Um, I mean, he wasn't the most amazing guy in the world. Basically, all of the research that he did was all like heavily based on like psychedelics and like, and actually like I believe the story is that he was contracted by the government to run that test with the dolphins
Right.
because they were trying to see if like, you know, psychedelics made it so that like you could communicate with like other creatures and shit. So it wasn't just like madman throws dolphin and woman together in a pool and tries to make them fuck. Like that's not the story of what happened, but that's going to be like his legacy is that he's the guy that had the weird
Uh,
dolphin experiments.
I hate how that stuff happens.
Yeah, I mean it's just like, you know, if you're deserving of it, like if you do something terrible and you're forever known as the guy that did that terrible thing, okay, well, you maybe kind of brought it on yourself. But if it's just like, you know, yeah, I did all of these amazing things in my life, but the one thing I'm known for is I said I like turtles on television, or something like that, and now they forever know me. It's like, uh, you see those like TMZ articles all the time. It's like, remember this person? Look at them now. It's like, uh,
Mhm.
like Dolph Lundgren. Like everybody knows Dolph Lundgren is like, if he dies, he dies. But he's also like a Fulbright scholar, and like, it's all these people just get pigeonholed because they're known for one thing or another. It's like that's not really what people are.
Yep.
Not all the
So you
green
better
girl.
get known for something good
Right.
and constructive because I don't know. That's what I'm banking on.
I mean,
Trying to,
it's
well, because I don't want some random thing to happen, and then that's like the thing, you know. Oh, he, whatever the hell. He had a pigeon fly into his
right.
ear or something, and then they were, I don't even know, but like, oh yes, and they're also because it's put in my context. If anything weird happened, they'd go like find,
Oh yeah, yeah.
they'd go, oh well, he's like a some kind of weirdo visual artist and living in Portland, Oregon. It's like all these. Then again, I don't know. I don't know. You know what? I do feel good actually that we've spent so long talking on this thing, and we talk for like in a non like punchy
Right.
way. Um because I feel like you kind of you can kind of get to know there's a person there.
Right. And,
So
and
if
it's
anything
like
happened, I don't know. I'm so worried about something happening.
well,
It's
with
just like
our luck,
random.
they would find the episode where we kind of, sort of, not really
The
defended pedophilia, but it's like, but
we
not
we
really.
were yeah we
We were
were
definitely, we definitely took a stand against it. I know that much,
yes
but
we'll state right now we're against that
I
always,
talked,
and now, but
but it's like, yeah, we have receipts for a lot of good things that have been said, and
totally.
being public on this, it's like, yeah, you get to know our opinions fairly well, but uh you can take 5 seconds of anything and take it completely out of
Oh
context and
man, if
try to
if people
destroy
start
us
doing
with
that
it.
with this show, we'd be
Yeah.
fucking. I mean, we'd be run out of town. I would be
I,
running. People would be coming by and like throwing shit on
right.
my at my house.
I'd like to blow up to the point where somebody makes a Monstark and Me soundboard. That would be cool.
Yeah,
We just
one of my clips would be just like a big pause.
right.
It's like here's the signature pause.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Yeah, here's five
Um,
seconds of dead air while I try to think
totally.
of the word
At,
that's
you know it, yeah.
escaping me.
Um,
Yeah.
that would be pretty awesome. If anybody ever wanted to make us feel good, they could. Uh, yeah,
They just
well, that's
find the
super
worst
fans.
things that we've ever said and put it into a
The terrible
soundboard.
soundboard. Yeah, yeah. I don't know that wouldn't that, but see that's what I'm talking about. It would be, it's already been like the taste of that kind of thing I've had in life is like, you know, like people acknowledging my own work, my creative endeavors and things, and maybe not knowing me, but like, coming up to me like it used like it was at a show because it's always,
Hmm.
it's just like all the people come to the show. Um, but that feeling was wonderful. It's like, oh, you already know what I've done. Like you already know things about me or like stuff that I've done. And it's so I don't know, like it feels so like such a great connective thing to me. Cause I'm like, you've actually seen part of me that
Right.
is very important to me. And I feel like if maybe in that case, like you would be okay with it. Like if people were like, hey, that thing that you did, like I just that really meant something to me, or I appreciate this part of you that you shared.
Yeah, I feel like,
Um,
the the business side of like the stuff that I've been doing with the t-shirts and everything, like it feels really cool when I, occasionally look up the anti-fascist social club hashtag and I find people
mhm,
who I know have bought stuff from me and have,
mhm,
put it up. But even that to a certain extent is a little bit difficult because I'm not the only person to have had that idea. Like there is a company in Brazil that's doing that has the exact same design, and so there's a lot of that stuff that shows up on that feed. But it's cool, and I also kind of believe that, like, had I attached myself and sort of inserted myself into that more, I don't think it would mean as much because
uh,
like we've talked before, people are so much interested in like the personality behind the art that it I feel it takes away from the art itself. Like it affects the enjoyment of art, at least for me. It's like, you know, I I'll give you a perfect example. I sometimes get fascinated with people who are just absolute train wrecks. Um and who have managed to kind of make these amazing careers for themselves despite some like almost like crippling like addiction problems and stuff like that. People like Shane McGowan from the Pogues, or it's like, where he was just absolute alcoholic drunk, um, just notoriously fucked up all of the time, but uh, kind of gained this like cult hero status for like his music. Well, there's this other fucking guy named Pete Doherty, who is a British musician and an artist. He's he was he's the frontman for some um, band called the Libertines. He's been in all of these various bands: Libertines, the Puta Madres, Baby Shambles. Like he's just been in a whole bunch of different bands, and he's a complete fucking mess. Like, you know, heroin problems, alcohol problems, crack cocaine problems. It's like, you know, he's constantly fucking up in some way. Um, and I was watching a riff track the other day. I think that must mean that Bianca just got home because they had the bird alarm. Um, so I was watching a riff track and they mentioned the name, and I was like, I remember that name, and so I just looked him up. And it's like, oh, that's the fucking train wreck. I remember reading that about that guy 10 years ago. Wonder if he's still a train wreck. Yes, he's still a train wreck. You know, still getting arrested, still going to jail, still going to rehab. Um, while I was reading on his Wikipedia page, I found this little note about how a picture of him was leaked to the British press in which he was making his little pet kitten smoke out of a little tiny kitten-sized crack pipe.
Yes, I believe I saw some tweet about that.
Yeah.
I didn't know who the guy was.
And
It's
this is the thing that it's like, okay, to me, that should be the thing that that guy goes down being known for. If there was anything, if there was any justice in this fucking world, he wouldn't be known as Pete Doherty, the musician, Pete Doherty, the artist, Pete Doherty, the sensitive poet, you know, all the stuff that he does. He should be the motherfucker that actually got a cat addicted to crack cocaine and had a cat have to go to the hospital because it ate a rock of crack cocaine. Like, I would be completely fine if that's what that guy, you know, like he put all of this beautiful music into the world. So fucking what? You gave a cat crack cocaine. That is what that should be your fucking legacy because you're a piece of human trash. Like, you know, it's
Do
I
you
see
think
I
that's
just
happening? That's going to happen now? Because
well,
it's out now, right? Like that was just
the
I just
problem
heard
was it
about that
happened more
randomly
than
on a
10
tweet.
years ago. It happened like in 2007. And he's still having art openings in the UK. Like the problem is that they're like it seemed like it seemed like that got picked up by tabloids and had a
Mhm.
tabloid run for a little while, but it it did not become, I think, because as soon as I read that I was like, oh fuck, I'm gonna look this up and see what happened. And then like there was all this stuff that happened that I found about when the story initially hit, but there was no follow up on it. There was no what happened after this. It seemed to have just gone away. And
Oh.
like that bothers me a lot. You know, so it's like there's certain things that, like, you know, we talked about separating the art from the artist and everything. It's like
Yeah, yeah. And just to interject, I know that you've got a propensity toward basically like just like canceling a person. You're just like,
yeah.
oh, they're dead to me
Yeah.
because they
I
did
mean,
this thing.
you have to do something pretty bad. Um I don't necessarily I wouldn't cancel somebody for, like, you know, uh something stupid like um I don't know. You have to do something pretty heinous. It's like,
Like a yeah, like an
you know, like
intentionally
Kevin
harmful,
Spacey, yeah,
destructive.
okay, I'm totally fine with him being canceled. Chris Brown,
Yeah.
not canceled, should be canceled. Major domestic abuser, human piece of
Mhm.
trash, horrible anger issues. danger to himself and others, not canceled. So it's like, for me, I'm all for a good redemption story if the redemption is real. Going on a press run after you do something terrible, talking to everybody about how you've changed and how you've learned, that's not actual redemption. Doing something uh, to learn from your mistakes, to educate others about the bad things that you've done. When people fuck up nowadays, like when celebrities fuck up nowadays, it becomes a PR issue. It becomes an issue of how are you perceived. And none of that is real. None of that means
Mhm.
anything. None of that has any
Mhm.
actual substance. Um,
And PR issues can like reach a flashpoint and then just disappear because the next one comes along. So
right.
it's like there are too many things happening to wait, slow down. We got to hold Pete Doherty accountable for something he just did.
Right. Right.
It's like 10 years later and suddenly we're all hearing about.
Yeah, that happened. Uh, cat altercation. Yeah, I was right. Late 2007. Um, and yeah, by April 2008, he was in jail for a probation violation. So, I mean, it's like he. I read another. I read another article about him before one of his many rehab stints, saying that like his rock bottom was when he got so fucked up on drugs that he almost killed one of his cats with a shovel because he was
Dude,
having like
somebody take
some
his
psychotic
cats.
break. Well, this is the fucking
Everything
problem.
goes to his cats. What the fuck?
Well, just recently, like I think within the last year or two, apparently he's made the switch to Siberian Huskies,
Great.
but one of his Siberian Huskies killed one of his neighbor's cats. So he's got off on cats, but he's
It all
still
goes back
fucking,
to cats.
like, he's still like this guy. Like, he should have like a restraining order against every cat in the known universe. Like, he's not allowed to be within 100 yards of a cat.
He can't even
Period.
Yeah, you can't even move into the neighborhood with cats.
Exactly. I mean, like, it's just when you see like, I don't have anything against people that have had issues with drugs or this or that or the other thing. Drug use, alcohol abuse, their mental health problems are related to it. There are genetic issues that play with it. Like, I know that, like, drug abuse isn't some choice that people make. Like, I'm going to become a drug addict. That's going to be my thing. And whenever I want, I can stop. But it's like when you have all of the when you have all of the benefits in the world and all of the opportunity in the world to seek treatment, like if you are somebody that it makes a lot of money for what you do and you have the means to like go into a really good treatment program and get the best care available out there, and you squander all of that, like eventually I start to lose a little bit of compassion. When you start fucking with cats, I lose all compassion. Like, go to hell. Like, just fuck
I mean,
off.
I'll
Like,
I'll I'll join you in that one for sure.
It's
That's where
it's
my
like
peace and love ends. God damn it.
I know, like, you know what? Like you should never be allowed to be in public again. Like, I looked him up. Like, his newest thing is apparently posed for he posed as a reference for a figure drawing class for prisoners in the UK. And he's doing this museum exhibit where they're going to put up all of the figure drawings that the prisoners did of him. And I'm like, okay, there may be some like charitable angle in this. You're trying to bring attention to, like, you know, arts in prison and all this stuff. But I'm sorry, you made your cat smoke crack. None of what you're doing is valid. Like, just
Well,
fuck off.
and the thing is just another, well, this is about him again. The
Right.
thing is, if it's all a
Exactly.
tribute to him,
That was the other thing. I'm like, so you're doing, you're showing this exhibition, and every single piece of art is of you, and yet this is
yeah,
about prison somehow. Like, I'm sorry, it just seems like an incredibly masturbatory exercise in,
totally.
like, also, just for what it's worth, I think that post was actually a very well crafted joke that I was fairly proud of. And I wrote about, like,
Mhm.
I was going to sleep that night. I wrote like a 5 minute bit in my head, just kind of thinking like that would be actually really, like, I could go on and on and on about, like, that as a premise, because my tweet was like, I've just discovered that this, English musician, artist, sentient adult incontinence diaper named Pete Doherty made his cat ingest crack cocaine. So congratulations, my pillow guy. You are now only the second worst crackhead in human history. That was a good joke. Didn't get any of the attention it deserved. It was a good joke. It was funny. Um, Setup, payoff, slight switch,
Uh,
bait and switch a
it
little
it
bit.
had all the. I followed all the, everything in the handbook.
Yeah.
I had the setup. I had the
But
payoff,
it made me,
the
I was just
pause.
so legitimately fucking angry reading about that. Like, I'm like, where is the fucking outrage? Like,
You'd think with all the cat
why?
love, people would
Yeah,
cancel his ass too.
exactly. Like, you know, like, you do that, and yet you still, like, you're, like, I would be scared to ever go on the internet again if I had done something like that. Like,
Hmm.
I wouldn't want to, like, I just, like, just go around the corner and get fucking lynched by the ASPCA or something. But
I know. Make cat abusers afraid again.
it's fucking exactly.
That's what we need. I don't understand that, man. Like, I don't fucking care what people do. Just contain it. Contain your shit.
Right. Yeah,
Do what you want.
exactly.
Just contain it. Go like drive yourself off a cliff or something if
Like,
you
I read,
want. But
like, multiple stories that I read of this guy involved. There was one where, like, this, he was late to a show somewhere because he had to stop on the way to the venue to bury one of his kittens by the side of the road.
oh,
Like,
geez.
multiple stories that I read of this guy involved either burying a pet, taking a pet to the hospital because it ingested drugs, forcing this. I'm like, motherfucker, you should not ever be allowed to have another animal in your lifetime. Like, they should be like fucking guns. Like, if you have a record, like, there should be a database that fucking PetSmart has where they can look up your name and be like, no, this guy got red flagged because, like, it's like, there
Yeah.
needs to be like a fucking database like there is for gun
The
ownership
PetSmart
or
strike team
voting
comes
rights,
in.
or yeah, exactly. It's like,
They come in like in fucking Minority Report and they just like they swing through your window and
right. It's like, or it's like when you go
grab
somewhere
your
and it's
kittens
like,
and
They have a little chart of the FBI's top most wanted. It's like, Petco's top most wanted, and like fucking Pete Doherty's face at number one. Like, it's just
Do not sell
like,
this man
yeah, yeah,
Friskies.
fucking. I think we have our episode title, "Cancel Pete Doherty," but it's just like it's so it's
I don't
just
know. I
like
don't know who this guy
it's
is. I
so
don't like him.
bad. I've
I don't
never
like him one
heard
bit.
I've never heard a millisecond of any of his music. Um, I can't remember even how I originally became aware of him. I remember, I think, like, I feel like in college I had heard his name for some reason and looked him up and was like, "Oh, he just seems like he is a constantly high, drunk, like just train wreck that somehow, because of celebrity, has had every single opportunity in the world and uh, just fucked out all of it up." Like Shane McGowan, like, I can't remember how I was I'd always heard of the Pogues, but I'd never actually heard any of their music. They're kind of like that, very, like, every song they make sounds like it should be on the soundtrack for uh god damn it, that the the motherfucker
I think I
Martin
know what you're gonna.
Scorsese movie with Matt Damon in it, The Departed. Like, every song they make sounds
Right,
like it
right.
should be on the Departed soundtrack. It's kind of like Irish punk music. And
Yeah,
they did that. They did like a pseudo Christmas song.
that's the one
S-
everybody plays. Fucking sick of hearing that
yes,
song,
it's
honestly. 'Cause
their
that's the
song.
one everybody fucking plays,
Mm-hmm.
and they have so many other much better ones.
Right. But he's a
Anyway,
guy. He's like, he also is kind of notorious for being like a constant drunk. Um,
oh yeah,
hmm?
first, yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Like, um, but apparently, like, he had some like medical work done several years ago, like 2 3 years ago, maybe. And while he was going through that medical issue, he basically kind of went through a forced detox. And supposedly,
Mm.
since then, he has remained sober. Supposedly, well, I'm saying that like I doubt it, but the reality is I just have no clue. But it's like,
Yeah.
when there's a story that sort of ends and like, and then he figured it out. It's like, okay, kudos. Like, you did the hard thing, and you made the hard choice, not the easy choice. Congratulations. But if you listen to that guy fucking talk, it's like,
He's pretty fucking addled.
yeah, like,
Yeah,
just, it's the damage has been done,
yeah.
for sure. Like, but it's one of the reasons that I've always was kind of a fan of Hunter S. Thompson, was the fact that,
Because he was impervious to harm.
well, yeah,
he, he did so
basically,
much shit
he
that
did so much fucking shit. Um, that did I do the thing I did? Yeah, I've done it on the show before, where um, where I read Hunter's schedule um,
mm,
from a article that they wrote about Hunter. Where his daily routine, basically, which has always been crazy to me, because he was very much kind of like the textbook definition. Well, not the textbook definition. He was like the highest high functioning like addict on the planet. Like, that you could be that self destructive, for lack of a better term, but while, you know, fucking yourself up on a daily basis, um, be incredibly creative and put out great work is always kind of impressive. That it's like it's
Mm.
almost like a some crazy daily routine that you're able to work with.
Yeah.
Um,
y- Um. it- yeah. Like there's like this romantic thing
mm-hmm.
about like extreme conditions and putting
Yeah.
yourself through extreme stuff. Um. I don't know. Does that part kind of appeal to you? Like, does that seem like a like wow he not that you do it yourself, but that's it's just like do
What
you think that's
impressed me
what
the
makes him
most
bigger than
about
life?
yeah,
Kind of
definitely bigger
like he's
than
a
life because not only did he have like this creative output while doing this, but in spite of that, like the thing that I always found impressive about Hunter was that he was like he would pal around with people like Johnny Depp or Marilyn Manson or whoever it is, but like that if you were to like just randomly wander into his house, the range of people that you could potentially see there, whether it be like, news anchors. I think he was friends with one of the guys that was like a host on 60 Minutes. He was friends with like, you know, career politicians. He was friends with, crazy drunks or drug addicts or, it's like he, despite all of the crazy shit that he was doing, he basically had access to practically anything in the world that he wanted to be involved in because of his work. It's I think I remember hearing about his funeral where it was like, you had I mean imagine like going to a funeral and in the same room you see Marilyn Manson and Bill Clinton or something like that. And you're like, "What?" Like, that was the thing that always amazed me about him was that he was somebody that could just fit in with any conceivable group, like at a high society party in New York somewhere or with a group of Hell's Angels, and he can kind of function in both of those worlds despite the fact that he can barely function at all. It's like
yeah.
it's just weird. Like I used to I've watched like some of his, I went through a phase where I watched a lot of just interviews that I could find with him. Like if he's on talk shows or Larry King or on the radio. I like listening to interviews because he's another guy who's incredibly hard to understand. He's not incoherent, but
Um,
he had a well, and it's like even before he was like doing drinking and doing as much drugs as he was later in life. Like if you heard like I think he did press for the Hell's Angels book, which was really the first book that he ever
uh,
did. He was on a couple of different talk shows where it was like the Hell's Angels were mad at him, and so it was like in the days of like pseudo Geraldo, like Geraldo before Geraldo, like these two Hell's Angels want to confront this writer, what he said about him in their books. I mean, he was talking in that same kind of weird undecipherable cadence in like the late 1950s, early 60s. That was just the way that he talked. It's almost impossible to understand. But um, I don't know. The thing that I always that was the thing that I liked the most about him was that he he was just incredibly unique in that there are not many people that can just wander any in and out of any given situation and kind of just be able to function in it.
mhm.
To be as at home with like, you know, drunk biker gangs or at a political fundraising gala or something like that. To be able to be at home
Mhm.
in both of those situations is kind of nuts.
and especially for somebody who could have easily been considered just complete or turned into a complete waste or fuck
Right.
up or
Oh yeah, yeah. Um,
like it.
and you know,
Maybe
it's
he narrowly escaped that too. Maybe like it was just the
like from yeah. I mean, he from what I read after he committed suicide, he supposedly told his whole family, you know, over and over and over again. He's like, I'm not going to turn into an old man and die. And, you know, I think what took him out was he had to have like multiple knee surgeries or something like that. And
uh,
so he was kind of in constant pain. And when you consider the amount of drugs that he was kind of doing on a daily basis, like giving somebody like him painkillers isn't going to do shit. So he had this, like, you know, he
yeah.
had surgery in a whole lot of pain. The drugs don't do anything to numb the pain because he's already on a million and one drugs. Um, and I think his thing was, well, I don't want to end up a cripple, so I'm just gonna shoot myself because I don't want to live life unless I can. I mean, it's a very kind of selfish view on life. I'd say, you know, it's like if
Well,
I can't, you know, but at the same time, he's
but
a
it's his
person that
life
lives on
though.
his own terms, and he always
Well,
has.
I think anybody, if it's your life, you should be able to decide
Right,
whatever you're gonna do. Like you should be able to decide and like, I mean, yeah, granted, don't be an asshole and just like spring it on your, people that care about you, but yeah, you have to be able to make that decision. That's like that's like a right. Like I think we're way behind on culturally on that. People should just be. It should just be a thing, you know. Like we shouldn't be forced to hang on no matter what, or feel the
right,
pressure to hang on no matter what. Because you know what? In some ways, this is actually something I don't know if they talked about this before, but and not saying that like I've had suicidal ideation or anything to any more degree than anybody else has,
right,
but uh the thought that you know there's if necessary there's a way to there's like and I'm not talking about my life, I'm just talking about like somebody maybe there's like it's chronic pain or it's like this is
right,
never going to get better, my
right,
body's never going to heal, and I'm expected to live with this for 20 more years, or whatever, along with everything else that comes with like getting old or whatever. I mean,
right.
it's it's
I was
it's
just
torture, it's brutal.
I was just thinking about that yesterday, you know, because it's like for the last several months, I've like my neck and shoulders have been fucked up for over a decade, I'd say, probably. It's like
Mm,
I have pretty much daily pain in my neck and my shoulders that are always tight. They always hurt. Like, you know, I'm always in some degree of pain. Not so much that I ever talk about it, you know, not so much that I've done much to actually try to fix it, which is stupid. Um, like if like there was a float place in Sebastopol that, you know, if it was unfortunately closed down during the pandemic, it was like, you know, I all I can think of is getting into a float tank and letting Epsom salts work on it. You know, but it's like I'm in basically constant discomfort. And I was just thinking like I'm 43, man. I'm in pain every single fucking day. I'm only 43. This is like what the fuck's going to happen when I'm 73? Am I going to be able to
yeah,
fucking move? Like,
right.
you know, and it's like I'm trying, you know, it's like I'm working on losing a little bit of weight. I'm trying to, you know, I'm trying to start to get into better shape because I know that being in better shape would probably make things a little bit easier than they are right now. You know, not having an extra 100 pounds to lug around. It's like if I wasn't carrying the extra weight, it probably wouldn't be as bad as it is. But at the same time, it's like things aren't going to like just increasingly get better. There's going to be a point of like diminishing returns. I'm going to reach a point where like no matter what I try to do to make things better, nature and age is just going to take its fucking toll like it does with everybody, you
Mhm.
know? And I'm like, god damn, that's going to suck.
Yeah, yeah. I
I
mean,
think I'm going to be like when I'm old and retired, I'm probably just going to be baked from the moment I wake up until the moment I go to bed. If I'm old and have
it's a
nothing to
good
do,
plan.
I don't have kids,
Oh,
I'm just going to fucking like smoke weed and watch whatever like our version of Matlock is going to be. Like that's just going to
it's
be
a good,
me.
yeah, that's a solid plan. Actually, in some way, that's kind of my, like, not that plan, but I kind of have told myself, since I like haven't explored the substance, I mean, the drug realm very much. Definitely not psychedelics. So I'm just like, that's my reward.
You're going to be an
If I
old cosmonaut.
get super old and just like, okay, I'm almost like ready to step off the planet anyway. I'm just gonna like go
Right.
explore a little bit, and so that's like that. And I'm always telling myself like that in video games. I can play all the video games I want because I'll have time, and I will maybe I won't want to like work on stuff all the time,
Right.
and like
Right.
I But I don't know. That sounds like a solid plan. I could see that happening with you.
I'm just basically going to recreate my college years, just smoke weed and play video games. That'll be me in my
Oh
80s.
yeah, totally. Yeah, it seems logical,
Yeah.
but I just I don't know. I don't understand like the why it's. I mean, I know there's a lot of talk about that and like mental health wise, you know, but I
The
don't feel that
tragedy,
it's not all it's not all the same. Like
right.
if I decided to make a plan to go to Amsterdam and plan my own, exit,
Right.
that's not really tragic. That's just like I'm choosing my time to get out before it gets too. We've talked about this just briefly, but I've known a couple of people who have had I I don't know, I assume they still have time limits on themselves. Like they've got an endpoint. And I
Interesting.
found that fascinating. Like the first time I'd heard about that was like Harold and Maude, right? When she
Right.
was like,
Right.
but these were people that I'd met and they had different, actually much different like time uh, endpoints that they had in mind. But it made, I mean, the later one, it made sense to me that like after a point where a lot of things decline, maybe like things aren't going to be so, at least like you just like plan for that. You live as much as you can up to that point and just like squeeze everything it can out of it and not try to like hang on for some reason that we don't. I don't even know why people. Yeah, I take it back. I know why people hang on and on,
Right.
but
Right. But I think a lot of it is for other people, not for themselves.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
And that
Well, it just I get
is that's unfortunate because at that point you're not really living on your own terms anymore.
yeah.
There's
I
a
mean,
sense
I
of
appreciate that.
obligation basically.
Yeah, I mean, but I appreciate it if you care about them, you're like, well, if
Right.
I
Right.
go now, but that's what I'm saying. Like the culture should be more of an open conversation and not like everybody freaks out when you bring up the subject. Like, hey,
Mhm.
eventually,
Right.
I might want to just like plan something to get um to do it my way versus
Right.
like it's like we do that with animals.
Right. Right.
It's probably like a rough comparison, but you know,
And we
we
consider
know
it an act of
deep down that
compassion.
it is. Yeah. So it just, I feel like the conversation needs to grow up or something, and maybe I know it's difficult right now because like we're thinking of it in terms of mental health and like saving people from
Right. To me, the
that, but
tragedy is not necessarily the act. The tragedy is that it ever had to get to that point. To
sure,
me, you know,
yeah,
it's
absolutely,
like,
yeah,
you know, the particularly in like in in you know the realm of mental health is like the tragedy is that people weren't able to see the signs or weren't able to provide the type of help that was needed. Like that's
it,
the shit that really like hurts is like why did it
yeah,
have to come to this point?
right, like they were right. I mean, that's the absolute worst. It's like there was no conversation; it just
Right.
happened.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the and that and you can go deeper than that. The tragedy is like the stigma that people put on mental health problems, the
Hmm.
how little we actually understand about mental health,
Hmm.
how people don't feel like they have a lot of choice. I mean, it's like you know people talk about taking like quote unquote mental health days at work where they call in sick one day just because they need a break.
Uh-huh.
It's like that's kind of diminishing the reality of like I think people genuinely need to have like you know I get 3 sick days a year where I work.
Jesus, and
Maybe it's 5. I
you're
don't think so.
full,
Yeah, full
you're
time,
full
and it's
time.
just like yeah,
Jesus fucking Christ.
it's no. I'm fairly positive. 24 hours sick time. I have other PTO, but the idea that like I mean I have a fair amount of health problems. Like, I have a lot of problems with like my stomach. I've had back problems. I have like, pain problems, all these fucking things. It's like I'm, I don't have nearly as many health problems as a lot of other people in the world. But the idea that I can like get sick 3 times a fucking year or like 3 days a year, like what happens to people that get a flu that knocks them on their ass for a week? They've used all of their sick time and they've only been sick once. And the rest of it is like PTO that like they may or may not have. It's like you're wasting
Yeah.
the time that you have like banked by busting your ass at your job winds up being spent when you're too burned out to go to work one day. Like
Right.
that's not the way that shit should work. It's
No,
like
it's ass backward.
like the attitude of like how mental health is treated and how much empathy we have for each other, it's really low. Like we don't do we don't consider it enough. Like when we're dealing with each other, it's like I've said it before. We tend to like just beat up on each other. It's like when we're
Mhm.
not, we just kick it down the fucking line and pass our bad mood off to the next person, and then just let it
Mhm.
snowball. Um,
Mhm.
we don't treat each other with a hell of a lot of like understanding or respect.
Right.
And mental
I
health
mean,
is
that's
pretty
a
far down the fucking line.
totally. I mean, that's like. I mean, I won't go so far as to like call it public safety thing. Sometimes it is,
Mm-hmm.
but it's definitely a public health issue
Oh, totally.
because like everybody. This is why I'm all like fucking peace and love and I want everybody to have peace and love and hugs all the time
Mm-hmm.
and sexual freedom and lack of stress because that shit creates a happier person, and that person doesn't like ripple all this like bad energy and terrible fucking actions out into the, where we all
Yeah.
meet. I mean, it's a that's this is like the thing, like this is a personal responsibility thing. Like you should contain your shit as best you can. A lot of people, some people can't, obviously need help, but
Right.
so many people fucking can. They're just lazy, or it's too difficult, or the culture of their world or their job or whatever is not aligned with that, so they just don't. It's just it's poison, all kinds of different poison. And
I mean,
um then we
I've
have
been
like these
thinking,
fucking like people who just like melt down
yeah.
and do crazy shit.
I mean, there's a real when all of the protests were happening and everything was sort of happening after George Floyd was killed. One of the things that I remember hearing kind of over and over again was um, kind of talking about how this is affecting the mental health of like black people and black children all over the country. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
mental health is already kind of like a bit underrepresented in that community. And it's like, I don't think a lot of people in that community are as open about like mental health issues as the Caucasian community is, um, and how there's just going to be this entire generation of kids growing up with this kind of like constant fear and anxiety, um, because of how many cops have been fucking killing black people all over the country. I mean, it's like, I've been thinking, just in terms of like, you know, everything that's kind of been happening just over the course of this last week because of like the blowback on like, Juneteenth and everything, and how, all these dumb white dudes are getting triggered because we made Juneteenth a federal holiday and stuff. I'm like, it's like there's so much that we need to change in the way we treat the black community. It's like we're arguing about a holiday and like as if somehow that is the real issue when in fact we're creating a generation of kids that are going to grow up in constant fear of the cops and just being at the wrong place at the wrong time and being black. It's like
Yeah.
there's a
It,
whole part of this that's not really being a focus of discussion.
yeah,
Because we don't understand how all of these things affect people's mental health.
right. And I'll even to play the devil's advocate, even if
The white devil's advocate.
exactly. Um, I mean, how else would I do? But yeah, like even if you're gonna go with the like, well, it's not actually as bad because blah 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 numbers and this and that. Um, well, it doesn't matter, because if people grow up feeling like a thing is happening, even if it's a little less or a little more than they uh, um, can actually prove that it's happening, it's still the same threat. It's like the fucking saber-toothed tiger. It's like the threat of this. I mean, I think we've talked about before. Even us, you and I, like getting weirded out by cops, like
Oh yeah.
getting like having like where you just like, what is this? What's happening now? Like when you know, it's like people who don't do anything all over and aren't even in danger of like, you know, having
Mm.
something horrible happen when they're stuck. Like they feel that. So I
Yeah.
mean,
I
imagine
mean, I've
if
told
like,
this story
oh
on
shit,
here
if this goes a
before.
little south, you know,
Yeah.
who knows what could happen? Because I've seen already like people like me doing that. So it doesn't like it doesn't matter, you know. Anybody can like talk about numbers or anything, but like doesn't make any difference. If the kid grows up
Right.
or a community grows up or you know is like immersed in this feeling that like that's that's the way
Right.
things are, then it's fucking real.
Right. Arguing about the statistics isn't going to make any difference whether or not these kids grow up in fear or not. That is going to be the reality. And, you know, uh, your your Karen cousin on Facebook, you know, can go on as much as she wants about supposed statistics and everything. It's like you're not doing anything about the reality of the fact that there's still a generation of kids that's going to grow up with this fear and anxiety and are probably going to have mental health issues because of that. But yeah, I mean, I told the story before. The only time that I've been physically assaulted in my adult life was by a cop, you know, because I was at a hip hop show and he hit me with a mag light. You know, it's like that basically, you know me, it's like I'm not exactly a confrontational person. So, you know, I don't exactly go around picking fights and shit. So, the fact that I've only been physically assaulted once in my life, you know, as an adult, when, you know, when I wasn't in the sixth grade and it wasn't a, you know, a sixth grader punching me in the face, that doesn't fucking count. But
Mhm.
like in my adult life, I've been hit once and it was by a police officer. That tells me
And
everything I
that's
need to fucking know
well, right.
because they
And
treat
that's not
people
even
like
saying
threats.
and and it doesn't matter again, it's like it doesn't even matter what, you know, that was maybe some asshole that shouldn't, you know, whatever percent we decide on, that's like
Right.
definitely shouldn't have
It
been
doesn't matter
hired.
that it was the one bad apple in the
It
bunch or
doesn't
whatever.
matter.
It's like,
It doesn't
nope,
matter because
it
that's
doesn't matter.
to you that's your story. That was your interface with that, you know, those people. And then if you've got a community of people, I mean, if you had a bunch of people around you that like that had happened too,
Exactly.
you know, everybody had their own one story that was like, yeah, that was fucked up.
I
Boy, that was a
mean,
really bad experience. Then how long is it going to take before that is like that's the reality? And
yeah. It's
I
like
think
I don't
that's the
have
thing that
like
gets lost and everybody's
right.
you know, arguing about this. It's like,
Yeah. It's
no,
like I
you don't
don't
understand. It's as real as anything else, no
right.
matter what.
Exactly. It's like I don't know anybody else who has had the exact same experience or who has had this similar experience as me, but you know, that's another thing that you heard a lot on TV when people were talking about, you know, George Floyd and everything. One thing that practically every single black person I saw interviewed at that time said was pretty much if you are black, you know somebody else who has had an experience like this with the cops. Like I I don't know that and I still have my views. If if me and every single person I knew somebody who that had happened to, then my opinion on this would be my reality would be a hell of a lot different. You know, it would
Mhm.
just be a core belief in that this is something I
Totally.
need to be kind of constantly
It,
aware and afraid of.
yeah, and the fact that, you know, big groups of people feel that that is just like a given
Right.
reality, you know, that's the
Right.
reality.
That
It's a
is just
given.
a reality.
I mean, that means something. That means like we need to do work on that stuff. I would I don't know if we talked about this, but like, what do you think about like generational, the whole generational trauma thing, like is it epigenetics, sort of
Yeah.
like things basically like passing through generations.
I mean, I think it's definitely reality. It's, I feel like I don't know if getting into like critical race theory would be like super political or not. I don't feel that it is at all an issue of politics. I think it is an issue of what we've just been talking about. It's an issue of reality, um, understanding like the real history of race relations in this country, and not just being taught history out of books, and everybody's learning the exact same thing regardless of what their situation is. But I think it's 100% like, um, I think it's definitely a reality in that like generational, like I feel that people who, um I think people who are living at the same time, going through the same things and experiencing those same things together, um are definitely going to have a trauma that likely does get passed down. I think that that's
Mhm.
just everybody's childhood. I think is very much influenced by, um, the experiences of their parents and how their parents teach and raise them.
Yes.
Um,
Oh God, we've hit on this so many times, but like
yeah,
I think that's everything. Like this is, I mean, yeah, some people are just spawned fucked up. Like,
yeah,
I've witnessed that, but in general, yeah, that's it. That's everything. That's where everything starts. And people aren't, it's like it sneaks in before you're even aware, whatever it is, and then it affects you for the rest of your life, and then that's passed on, you know, which I mean, this is all obvious, but it just it really like kind of weirds me out that the way that that happens, because I feel
yeah.
like I see everybody as like everybody's a child, and at their core, you can see them acting out. You can
Hmm.
see them like just dealing with emotions and stuff, and it's all, they don't know what to do with themselves sometimes. They throw fits and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
Uh, but there's all this other stuff on top of them, and they have to learn to be adult. I'm not even sure where I'm going with this, but yeah, no, that's it. It's like I think it's everything. I think that that's like a public health thing too. Not that we
yeah.
need to jump in and like tell everybody how to raise kids, but I mean, there's like some sick shit that gets passed on.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel like and I feel like it's just kind of going to get worse. I mean,
Mhm.
we've done so little to address this, and so little to, I mean, particularly in the black community. I mean, we've done so little to address the institutional, um, reasons behind this happening. Like, we've done so little to address institutional racism. We're treating symptoms, not the cause, etc. I mean, I think we talked about this maybe in that very first episode after George Floyd. It was, particularly about intergenerational trauma. Like, every single generation that grows up knowing that the generation before them, that their parents were treated a certain way, that their grandparents were treated a certain way, that their great great grandparents, it's like every generation, like every new generation that grows up with that hanging over their heads, like that generation just probably has like just a little bit less hope at the beginning, because it's like, you know, the generation before us, it's like uh, you had, civil rights marches and, uh, blacks winning certain rights and all these other things. It's like, you can think, well, maybe there's a little bit of hope because the generation before us, they made these strides and they accomplished these things, but here we are 60 plus years after all of those things have happened. And despite all of those things having happened, it's not as if the world has really changed all that much. You know, black communities are still being systematically oppressed, and we're still having these same conversations that we've been having for 60, 70 plus years. It's like, it's the reality hasn't really changed that much. There may have been laws passed, et cetera, et cetera, but the reality of day to day existence is still pretty fucked up. So I absolutely believe that there's just, you're taking on the trauma of every generation before you.
I mean, yeah, and I'm wondering, like, and maybe that was part of my question too, like how much of that is like this kind of tradition thing, where an example, that kind of thing, that's seeing examples versus
Mm-hmm.
like baked in kind of,
Yeah. I mean,
body stuff. Because I mean, and
that's a
not
very,
just even just
yeah.
talking, not even just talking about trauma, but like talking about other things, like uh propensities toward certain things, or in a lighthearted example, I have a friend who I might have mentioned this before, but like he had the thought that people, based on like where their ancestors came from, they have a certain propensity to like have to, well, either they can more easily handle certain kinds of alcohol, or they are more drawn to it, like that's their drink or whatever.
Right,
Like
right.
a lot of people have that, and some are just terrible, some are just like, I can drink this all day. And
Like
um
Finland and vodka, yeah.
yeah, something like that. In his case, he's half Puerto Rican, so he was like, yeah, rum, like rum is just like my thing, because it's
Mm-hmm.
um but I thought that was such an interesting. I feel like I don't hear people talking about that, because it almost makes it feel like you don't have free will or something. To some degree,
Right.
it's like this stuff baked into your DNA that's just like gonna get you at some point, or it's just gonna like show its face at some point. But um, and potentially could go way, way, way back to, well, I don't know. Fuck, we already deal with that shit already. Like we're uh like when we see certain kinds of creatures, we're just like, we have this repulsion. Like these things are like spiders and snakes. It's like that's baked in too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's a really good question because we know that stress affects our physical health, our mental health. I know that stress is something that pregnant women should avoid. We're always being told to
Mm,
avoid it.
hmm.
So it's a very interesting kind of question as far as, so how does how does that like what exactly does, stress? How exactly does stress affect a child, from birth? Like what are the long-term ramifications of, being born from somebody who was incredibly stressed out the whole time? How is that going to shape your personality, your mental health, your uh, everything? Like, how is that going to manifest itself, throughout your life? Um, is it just going to make you like more anxious? Like, it's an interesting like question is of how is it physically, like, not just how is your childhood going to be shaped by what happens during your childhood, but like you're essentially being dealt, a fresh deck at birth, and how is that essentially going to be stacked against you because of that?
Right.
I mean, it's something that
Yeah.
I've
Like,
never really thought much about, um, as far as like, you know, I've thought very little about like how my personality was shaped by my parents, because I honestly don't see a hell of a lot of I don't see like a whole lot of their influence on either side. I mean, there's probably some small traits that I have, but I can't point at something and say, "Oh, I'm that way because my mother or my father was that way."
hmm,
Um, the only thing is like I basically can cry at like a sappy commercial or something, and I feel like I picked that up from my dad. That's kind of about the extent of it. Like
yeah.
I get super emotional during like, you know,
Like the moment of,
things that are intended to be manipulative,
yeah.
emotionally manipulative in movies, they work on me, basically.
You know what? I found that I have the same thing.
Yeah.
I've totally embraced it.
Like I'll
Is
give
all
you the
like,
dumbest example. It's like I don't know if did you watch the presidential inauguration and like everything that happened after that? They had this like big TV event after the election,
I didn't watch the
when he
event.
was like kind of when he was sworn in, and like I watched a whole lot like the the day that like Biden essentially moved into the White House, right?
Okay.
So um they had this big like kind of they had this big television event that was live, that had like musical performances and like people talking and all of these things. And it was like, since they didn't have any like, live events during the inauguration, they made this huge um, like TV spectacle for us all to watch. And near the end, I think one of the last performances, I think it was Katy Perry in DC. I think she was singing like Firework, or and there was like just this massive fireworks display going on, and like at one point there was just this shot of Biden and his wife and Kamala Harris and her husband, and they're on the balcony like of the White House watching the fireworks display, and it's kind of shot from behind, so you can just see their backs, and they're kind of like, they have their hands around their spouses, and I just fucking broke down. And I think a lot of it was kind of just a culmination of like, 4+ years of anger and frustration. And I don't believe that, like, we talked a little bit before the election, like Biden was probably down near the bottom of the list that I wanted, to see get into office. But it was just this very sappy, kind of kind of manipulated, obviously, because it's like, they obviously
Sure.
want you to feel a certain way about this. It's a calculated experience, but shit like that can be incredibly effective on me. And I was a mess. Like and I think, it was kind of, I don't think it was all what was happening right there. I think it was just kind of like this. It was a it was like kind of like one of the first times he sort of like took a breath and it was like, okay, maybe things might start turning around now, which is of course exactly what they wanted you to be feeling at that point.
Yeah.
But damned if it didn't fucking work, man. Like,
Uh-huh.
I was just like, I sent a picture of my face to Bex, and I was like, what in the fuck is wrong with me? Because it was like red, eyes are fucking red, like just like tears running down my face. I'm like, I am a utter mess right now, and I don't know what's
Uh,
wrong with me. And because I know that like Bex is kind of the same way. She
what's
gets
wrong with
like,
me?
she'll cry at the at a lot of movies and shit like that. She does the same thing. And so I was kind
Mhm.
of like, I felt somewhat comfortable because I know that she gets like that. I'm like, yeah, I'm a fucking wreck. You know, so I feel like that
Oh,
like emotional side of myself kind of comes from my dad because he's very much like that. He's like but not in like, my dad is like a pretty stable guy emotionally. Like I don't see him. He doesn't get angry a lot. He doesn't get frustrated a lot. He's pretty chill. His only thing is like when he starts talking about certain things, like family things or this or that or watching something. Like he gets very emotional about stuff.
wells
I
up.
yeah.
I uh, I love that. I love that because I feel like I'm kind of the same way. Like I don't get super like why I mean I get like enthusiastic and stuff,
Mm,
but generally like emotionally I'm not like okay, I get cranky when it's hot like today. But um I don't feel like I'm all over the place or like all out there all the time and I'm just like always but the one place where it's just easy to all the fucking time, like you said, like
mm,
dumb things constructed to like or just not even that, just like a dumb thing in a dumb movie. Just like one moment in a dumb movie or one moment in a song that's just like otherwise just a great song.
right.
It's not even meant to like tug at anything. It's just like but it's just like a an image or like a moment or something. And it just I don't know. Sometimes I think like, does that mean that I'm like, getting old? You like think about like, well, when you get old, you start getting more whatever they'd say, like more estrogen or something, so that makes you more emotional. And like, well, I've always kind of been like that. I've always been soft and everything,
Yeah.
but not to take it off in a. I'm really curious about that because I've been realizing lately that I feel like a that's a maintenance thing too. That like
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's almost got a bad. Another thing, it's got like a bad sort of feeling behind it, like something's wrong. When the fact is, and I guess I'm more talking about men. It's just like you're crying. That means that something is just like
Yeah.
off. But it's a total maintenance thing. I,
Like I've only, I think, cried out of real actual sadness probably once in the last 10 years, once or twice.
uh,
It's like when my cat died when I was living in Portland, I I broke down pretty fucking bad. Um but like I don't cry a hell of a lot out of sadness. Like when my grandfather passed away, I didn't cry once, because I was more kind of angry and frustrated than I was sad about the fact that he passed away.
Mm.
Because he died because he had a calcified liver because he, drank every day for a really long time. And, so when he passed, like, I was like, God, I'm incredibly sad that he passed. I'm like, I wish he hadn't uh, avoided the reality of what he's doing to himself for as long as he did. It's another kind of thing where it's like, you did this to yourself. And like, I
Mm.
was more like, I don't know if I had one stage of grief and it was just anger and I didn't go to any of the other fucking stages or what it was, because I was obviously really sad, but it was also kind of like, well, I guess this is just what happens. I guess this is just like, you never listened to anybody. You never took anybody's concerns to heart and took any of it seriously. And, you know, now you're gone because of that. Like, that just
Yeah.
fucking sucks. It's just like, that's what it is. It was more just like resignation. Or, either that
Right.
or as I went from anger straight to acceptance and was like, all right, you know,
Yeah.
this is just the reality. Um, Everything else has been like, uh, just being manipulated into crying essentially by media of some sort. Like, there's only
Yeah.
one song I think that ever really makes, that gets me choked up. And it's weird because it's not a sad song at all. There's a song by Outkast called Liberation. And it it's weird because not many people would think of like, what's the song that makes you cry? Not many people would use a song that's on a rap album. But
Sure.
it's it's a combination of like piano, there's some rap in it, spoken word poetry, and singing. It's like it's got Outcast on it, but it's got piano. It's got Questlove from the Roots playing the drums. It has Big Rube, who's like a guy that has done a lot of spoken word on their albums. Had Erica Badu, and it had CeeLo from Goody Mob. And the last several minutes of the song are just piano and drum. Um,
Mm.
but it's just like, it's my I say it's like, it's my favorite song of all time just because of how it manipulates me. It's like, it makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. It, like, it just is such like, I hate emotionally manipulative music. Like, I hate music that is supposed to that is trying to make you feel a certain way. Like, the triumphant, like, like anthems, that like, Katy Perry or like Taylor Swift make the like, yeah, like, the anthems that are supposed to like, make you feel pumped up, or the like, sappy ass like sad songs and shit like that. I don't like music that tries to make me feel a certain way. Like, this song just like kind of does. Like, it doesn't seem like it's trying to make you feel anything. It's just so well composed and put together that it just does make you feel a certain way, I think. And
Yeah.
it's like it's like a 6 or 7 minute long song or something like that. But it's just like, uh it's just like the kind of the combination of like, CeeLo, he's kind of a problematic dude. Like, he's said some things throughout his lifetime that I don't necessarily agree with, but he has such an incredibly unique voice. Like, people kind of started like, when the song Crazy came out, or when the song that he did with like Danger Mouse came out, the "Fuck You" song that became super popular.
Oh,
CeeLo kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
quickly became like a household name off of that "Fuck You" song.
right.
Um,
Even
and
I heard it.
yeah, and he has an absolutely incredible voice. Like it's so like unique, like really kind of high pitched voice, but it's also like really scratchy at the same time. So like his voice in rapping and in singing has always been one of my favorites just because it's so incredibly distinct. And so him and Erica Badu together on the same track, like sort of singing on top of each other, like with their vocals on top of each other. It's just
Uh-huh.
such a good fucking sound.
Yeah.
That song, every single time I hear it, it just is like, it's never like, and it's also the thing, it's never gotten old. Like every
Yeah.
time I hear that song, it affects me the exact same way, no matter how many times I've heard it. Like it's
Yeah.
just
Like it
so fucking good.
doesn't fail to deliver that.
Yeah. And
There's gotta be. Oh, go ahead.
I know I was running out of stuff. It's just like um I don't know. It's just like every single part of the song works really well. Like even spoken
Mhm.
word stuff. I'm not like a big fan of like spoken word stuff, but it's just like really, it's like a collection of incredibly powerful voices all on
Mhm.
like the same song.
Mhm. There's a there's got to be a term for what it, you're calling it, like tears of joy or something. It's not even. I don't even think that's really fully appropriate. It's just like there's like a. I always describe it as like the perfect little. It's like it's that's the stuff that always, and it happens all the time. I just like tear from like some random little like thing somebody did,
Mhm.
like a song or like in a film, and there's got to be some term for that because it's like very specific, non-sad thing,
Right.
non necessarily like you're not even thinking about like the content of the thing. It's just that the art itself
Right.
hits something, and
It strikes a nerve, and you're not exactly even sure what exactly it is that you're reacting to. You know,
totally,
it's
that's it. That's
just
it.
like, I think
That's
it's just whatever the motion it is that's conveyed via the art is kind of what you're reacting to.
it's like, well, that's exactly it. It's like a word. It's wordless sort of like communication because like whatever I get out of it, it has usually nothing to do with like
Hmm.
the actual, like sometimes not even the actual story or the actual lyrics or whatever the song's about. It's just like this wordless thing that just that's like a magic. It's like it's like an incantation or something, like a little. I wish I knew what that was. There's got to be something that somebody's figured out that means, because that happens all the time, and I've never been able to put like words to that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know I've talked about it before. It's like when I hear a sad song that is written intended to be a sad song and intended to like, you know, convey that same kind of like melancholy and sadness or whatever. That doesn't make me sad necessarily. Usually makes me
Mhm.
depressed. It's like, and it used to happen to me a lot more than it does now. But
Uh,
I
you
talked to
mean when
you
they're
about,
they're trying too hard, or they're
yeah, it's
intending
like,
to hit?
you walk into like a grocery store or something, and they're playing this like, uh, they're playing whatever crappy music they play in grocery stores and they're playing some like sad song, it zaps the joy from me. It's like I don't get sad because of the song. It just makes me depressed. And it just like I've been watching a lot of the Harry Potter riff tracks recently. So it's like a Dementor just shows up and just sucks all of the like joy from my soul. Um and it just kills my mood. It's like and I know I'm reacting to the music, but I'm not reacting to the song. It's just that sappy, sad melody that is just so artificially injected into that type of music. It just kills my soul. Like,
Mhm.
because people feel that like there's a formula that you can put together to kind of create that type of song. I think the reality of that is if you can't convey what it is that you're trying to convey with your voice, I think what they do is like, well, let's use all these extra tricks that we know work. It's like, you know,
Mhm.
uh, like truly great music or like people that can, make you like cry with an amazing song. It's not like, it's often not like the orchestrated music that goes along with it. It's like the most powerful thing is just like somebody singing a really, really powerful song. If you're, and so I think what happens is if your voice can't do that work for you, you just paint by numbers. Like, this is how you make a sad song. Make it a minor
Totally.
key. Do this, do that, do the other thing. I'm like, a lot of that's just mostly garbage. It's just,
I think it's like I think you're hitting on something because it's like um in the absence of something that's actually powerful
mm-hmm.
and deep,
Right.
they're like doing whatever they can to prop, to like fabricate this thing that's not even that's
Yeah.
why that's why you feel that bad and like sucked dry or whatever of all, you know, goodwill because it's that it's like it's not real.
Yeah.
And I can't understand actually. I don't know. No, I do understand because when I was a kid, I didn't have anything to listen to except for radio.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of grew up on like pop music, and I was so emotional about it. Like whatever, like stupid love crap, love song, and or whatever. I was just like, because it was like a kid, and it was like I was imagining this adult world, so it seemed like kind of spooky and like high stakes, and like it was all just so much deeper. Like I hadn't lived yet, so I didn't know. But I can't like having being becoming an adult with experience, like going through, a chunk of your life. It's like I can't imagine fucking getting that much out of this like surface
Yeah.
level stuff. I don't and that's what happens when I listen to stuff. I almost like fall into that it's like some old man mode. I'm just like, what are these people I mean, this is like some kid just singing about like something they haven't even done yet, or what I mean? It's like your life is just great. What are you talking about?
Right. Yeah.
Shut up and
And by the way, I was
um
wrong. Liberation is an 8 minute and 47-second long song. It's a
mm,
9 minute song on a rap album, and every single second of it is amazing, which is
mm.
crazy. Um,
So they pull you through 9 minutes of
it's so
slowly
like
slowly like getting to that end part where you're like that hits you and you're left with everything like
it
all
is
the words are taken away and you're left with just pure
the
emotion at
way
the
that
end.
they build. Like, I mean, it's And the thing that like drives me crazy is they've never ever made another song like it. It is so unique um,
Mhm.
in everything that they've done, um, and just stands alone as kind of like this, like so such a like it's like this just gem. Like I've loved like all of Outkast music. Like they're my favorite, probably my favorite hip hop band. Although when you talk about band, like they're a duo essentially. So I've always wondered, does
Mhm.
duo count as a band? They're definitely my all time favorite hip hop duo
Oh yeah,
at the very much.
it's they.
But
But I think it's a different question. Like I think band is like, to me it's like playing, like performing things, not just
right,
singing.
right.
But I don't.
Um, so I've always liked their music, but this one song that they did is so different than anything else that they've ever done because it really does seem like orchestrated. I mean, hip hop generally is like verses and hooks. And it's like it's it's kind of formulaic in a way. You have a verse, you have a chorus, you have a verse, you have a chorus. This this like one song is like so different because it it rises, it falls, plateaus. It's like it really does seem like it was orchestrated from beginning to end to be like just such a different piece of music than anything else that they've put out before, anything that they've put out since. And I don't believe it has ever been performed live because there's so many different
Huh.
people on that track. I don't think they've ever done it live either. Um, because I've never been able to find a live performance of it at all. The only version I've ever heard is the album version of it. Um,
Huh.
but there are a couple of things like another one that has got me, but I feel like I'm more being emotionally manipulated by it. Is Imagine Dragons performed with uh, Kendrick Lamar at like an award ceremony once. And it was a very, very, very powerful performance, but that seems a lot more like the it's a lot more emotionally manipulative because it is absolutely like an anthemic song. That Radioactive song is a total fucking anthem. It's total like commercial. It's like a fucking Avengers movie in a song. Like there are practically like explosions in it. I mean,
It,
it's a really well put together song, but it's
uh,
totally pop. Um, it's a total
it,
pop like just hit.
you sent
But
that to me, to me, and the performance part too. Like that was crafted to be like
mhm.
extra
Yeah,
impactful because they had
everything
like
like
this, like all this
bringing
stuff
out
going on.
Kendrick is kind of like a surprise, and like, I mean, Kendrick's an amazing performer, um, and that like is just that was just a really really great performance. However, like if I just heard that, I would not at all. If I would not react the same way at all. It's the performance and like the visual of it that just like blows me away. Um,
Mhm.
I would not have that same reaction to the song itself, though, which is like a
Uh-huh.
huge difference, I think.
Yeah, yeah, that happens to me more than I realize. Now that you mentioned that, because whenever I go, definitely live shows, like I just, that's why I like live stuff so much. It makes me fall in love with everything
Yeah,
so much
yeah,
more. Mm.
yeah. I haven't seen there. I may go see a show on July 8th. I might actually go see a show in Berkeley.
Holy
I'm
shit!
seriously debating, but that would be weird That would be a very weird experience. Um,
You're gonna have to get over your.
I know. Well, I did see that in all the promotion of it, they're saying masks required. So even though by that point California is going to be totally open, I believe they're requiring masks at the venue regardless.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. Um, but I haven't like I don't think I've ever seen like a really really powerful live show. I saw the
Yeah.
Black Eyed Peas live before they turned into the Black Eyed Peas that everybody now knows.
Uh
Um,
huh.
the Black Eyed Peas pre Fergie was actually a really awesome hip hop group. Like the beats were really good. They used to break dance live at all of their shows. Like they were just amazing. Like they're incredible performers, which I mean, really, it's kind of a no-brainer that they blew up as huge as they did and became this massive like pop sensation that they did. They were like, get a white girl in the group that can like sing really well, and then next thing you know, they're like one of the biggest bands in the fucking world. Um, but like they put on an incredibly good live show. I saw Outkast live once. I think. I know I don't remember the show at all. My memory is so fucking bad. Bianca gives me shit about it all the time. She's like, "You don't remember anything." I'm like, "I know." Like, I have no fucking memory. It's like terrible. Um, but yeah, I don't know.
That's
It's
interesting.
I'm trying to remember if I had like a live show experience that I left with just like on a massive high. And
You're trying to remember this?
I'm trying to remember if I've ever had an experience like that at a live show. And I feel
Yeah.
like I have. I just can't remember it.
It's so weird because I feel like uh, the emotional, you know, part of it is that's what's gonna lock it in there. That's what's gonna
Yeah.
make you remember. That's weird. I've had that feeling so many times. So many shows, like almost most shows, I think, even little shows. I just come out of there. I'm like, oh my god,
Well, I
it's so great.
think
I'm so glad I
I,
went.
I'm going to say something that may be a little bit problematic, maybe. But I think in general, hip hop live shows generally are not super great live shows. They can be, but the problem is that like um a lot of the this like Spotify, I've come across a couple of like live hip hop performances, and 10 times out of 10 I'd rather listen to the album. The live experience is usually not as great as far as like at least how the music sounds. Like it can
Hmm.
be like powerful performances, but hip hop shows are generally pretty underwhelming because
Yeah,
there's not a hell of a lot of spectacle to it. Um,
yeah. You
the
know what? I thought that was just
performances aren't as the performances aren't as like involved and stuff.
they're not like dramatic.
Yeah, there's
In
no
it,
such
I
thing as a
thought,
guitar solo at a hip hop concert. You know, there's like
or just like. uh, I mean, I haven't seen. Wait, have I seen?
I've also never been to a big show. I've never seen a show
Yeah.
in a big venue.
You know
Which
what though? Like, I, if it's too big, there's no energy.
yeah,
It's just there. I don't see. I never go to them because I don't see the use because I'm not going to get anything out of it. It's
yeah.
like the energy is like so dissipated and you're so
Hmm.
disconnected. I will say, like watching, videos of like hip hop shows, they don't seem terribly enticing and exciting and like dramatic.
I
And
think that
that's what I
like
like to get out of like
yeah,
usually metal shows. I'll go to.
yeah.
There's some level of like it'll like pull me out of. Like I don't feel like I'm just they're creating some sort of thing that seems more magical than just like a bunch of dudes or women
Yeah.
standing around or whoever.
Yeah, AAA hip hop shows are pretty much mostly just people nodding their heads. So there's not a lot of like you're not getting a hell of a lot from the audience. Um
Yeah.
Cuz hip hop shows people are generally just standing there. Um and there's usually one or two just super annoying people that always tend to distract and take some of my attention away because
Mm.
like hip hop shows there's almost always some guy right up front and center, leaning on the stage and just way more into it than everybody else, which is like great for them. But for some fucking reason, they're always like just slightly out of place because they're just like so much more invested than everybody else in the room that I'm like, God, that guy is bugging the fuck out of me. It's 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 my problem.
You know,
It's
when
my
I hear that,
problem that I'm letting them get under my skin.
I think it is. When I hear that, I'm like, everybody else in that room needs to step up
Exactly. That's
because
what I
that's the
should be
example.
thinking. That's what I
Totally.
should be thinking. Is that like if everybody had that dude's vibe, it would be so much more energy in the room. But
Mhm.
instead, what it does is it turns me into a hater. Um, and that's why it's like I
You want
think
you want him
you
to dim
know.
or whoever that is to dim their light.
Okay, thought of one. Um, in Portland, there was this club that I used to go to every once in a while. Um, I think it was called OHM. I think that was the one. And there was a band that played there every, I think, Tuesday night. Um, the band was called Dahlia. And a friend in mine would go. And it was crazy because it was the same exact band and it would perform there weekly, which when you think of it is
Mhm.
really odd because they only have so many songs that they can play. But they played this club every single week, and every week people would show up, and it was because like the performance there was there was a it was really just two people. They had this singer and a not necessarily a DJ. Um, uh, he was more of like a producer. Um, so the singer was this girl named Jen Folker, and the producer slash DJ guy was this guy named Keith Schreiner that went by Auditory Sculpture, and yes, it was called Ohm. I'm going to. I'm keeping track of my sources this time. Um, and
You'll look it up.
the show would be different from week to week every single time, and it always felt like whatever mood Keith was in, that's the way that the show would go. So
Mm.
um, it was a mix between like a band and almost like a jam band in another way, because uh, you could hear you would go in and listen to one song one day, and it would maybe be like this slow song, but the next time like Keith would turn it into like this crazy like hard driving drum and bass track,
Mm.
and she would just kind of vocalize on top of whatever Keith was doing, like almost in a way, almost like scatting in a way, with just using her voice as the other instrument.
Yeah.
And they would end every show with him playing the didgeridoo and her singing on top of it. It was the weirdest fucking thing. But the thing is, but it was like they were a really awesome live experience because you would they were playing the same material, but every single time you heard the material, it was different. And like
Yeah.
I was like a big, I've always kind of liked drum and bass music, kind of like aggressive electronic music, like drum and bass and jungle. I've always really liked, and so we would go there just never knowing what kind of show it was going to be. Um, and that was always a really awesome live experience because
Hmm. Sounds
he would
fantastic.
just he would essentially just kind of like plan the night out and just like it was for a band that was playing, and it sounds like I'm talking about Fish right now, but I'm not. It's like, it was
Please don't.
I know. um but it was like they were playing the same material from week to week, but but it was still improv in that, like,
Huh?
he would just throw on whatever kind of a beat or whatever drums, and he would be like, besides the fact that it was electronic, he was playing all the instruments live, and just it was just like fucking crazy to watch, like him just completely change everything on the fly, change beats, all that. I mean, it was crazy. Like it
Yeah,
was definitely a really really cool experience.
that's so they can play the same place, the same songs every week.
Yeah, and it was
That's
also, I
awesome.
mean,
That's just playing.
and it was also like he wasn't a DJ. Like, so he didn't come up there with like turntables, or a laptop. This was like kind of pre laptop DJs at the time. He had like physical equipment up there every single time. Like,
That's crazy.
MPC machines and shit like that, or
Oh
samplers and
my
like
God.
loopers and all that stuff. So he's just
Yeah,
like,
that's fucking crazy.
um, another guy, Alias Anacon. Like, he was a guy that Bianca and I went and saw a couple of times. He was very similar, where it's like he like would go out with, he would have MPCs, drum machines, samplers, and just put on uh, live shows with those. And that's the thing that always made me want to get into music, is like I love watching somebody who's incredibly good with like an MPC. You just sit there with like
Hmm.
a bunch of fucking pads, like, and there was another guy in the same kind of collective, the Anacon collective, a guy named Gel, like Jel. He was just like, he's a fucking monster with a drum pad, like just the kind of shit that you can do with like just like 16 pads to just be able to like make crazy music
Hmm.
out of that is always, that's what I want to, like, when I want to uh like when I think about making music, like that's the kind of stuff I want to be able to do, is just like play, like just do live drumming on like pads. I just think that's so fucking cool.
Yeah, yeah. It's possible.
Yeah, definitely. I just need to I almost, there's a part of me that kind of wishes though that like I had gotten into it like 20 years ago, because it
Uh,
seemed like there was a lot more, it was a lot more hardware based then, it seems. It's like you had, I don't know, like fucking floppy disks with your sounds on it and samples on it. And then, it's just, you program them. Now it's like you have to figure out all the software, which can be a pain in the ass.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like anything. I mean, getting past it, like, I don't know. Yeah, I guess you have to be willing to sit with the fucking machines. This is what I've been realizing that's what keeps me away from certain kinds of like certain mediums.
Mm-hmm.
Things that come with a lot of, you know, uh a lot of like being locked into learning and like things that come with like lots of equipment or something where you have to learn the equipment too and not just like jump in and do a thing. Like at this point, the thought of doing that just
Yeah.
I just feel frustrated just thinking about it. Like I just want to find a way around it. And it's probably lazy of me to think that way, but uh I don't know. I don't know. I'm just not I'm not thankfully, like I think nothing I do right now is like beholden to it. I downloaded the 3D sculpting program,
Ooh,
and that was super fun. I started getting into it for like a couple days, and then I realized what it was gonna take to get good, and like how much I was already getting into it, and like spending time in it. I was like, so, fuck that. I'm not even gonna try that, and I left it alone. It's too much. But I encourage your pad exploration.
yeah.
Everybody that I've seen that uses things like that, like does looping or like uses pads and things. It's just, I mean, it's just like playing around.
Totally, exactly. It's
So
like,
fun.
uh, there. I follow like a decent number of those people on Instagram. Um, it's it's a lot of times just improvisational. It's like you
Yeah,
you have some drum sounds and you're just kind of like doing whatever you feel like at the time, basically. Um,
yeah,
and I think that is super cool to just be able to like, you know, the idea that with this one piece of equipment, you can kind of make whatever you want to make music wise, I think is
mhm,
incredibly cool. There's a YouTube series that I burned in a couple of days, and I need to find the name of it, and I'll put it in the show notes. Producer, fuck, uh, trying to. I'm looking it up here. It's called Rhythm Roulette. It was a series that Mass
did we
Appeal.
watch? Did we
We may
watch some of that?
have. Oh, I think we did. Yes.
Okay.
So Rhythm Roulette, what they do is they take kind of really renowned hip hop producers. They take them to a music store and they're like
Yes.
basically
Oh yeah, I remember
blindfold
this.
them. They blindfold them and they
Yeah.
have to pick like five records on vinyl. Um, and then take those records back to their studio, find samples from whatever the record is, and then make a beat based on just the samples. Well, they can use like additional drums and shit, but they have to incorporate every single one of. And there's some people that like wuss out and just use one record. Those people suck. Like
Yeah.
I like the idea is like you have to find a sample from every single record and use it to make the beat. And it is like just like I got so into that series um,
Yeah.
because I loved it. It's like you have no clue. That was uh, my friend Danny. um, he's DJP. Like he used to do this thing where he would set his turntables up and uh, start mixing records, and then whatever we handed him, he had to find the way to mix in. And like it's crazy the shit that he could like somehow find a way to like play back to back and to like make transitions smoothly. Like I think it's people just playing around, having fun, um, and like being forced to adapt and kind of like think on the fly.
Yeah.
That's always just incredibly cool to me.
Absolutely. I love that. I
Yeah,
feel like with
it's
practice, like you'd probably, you know, you're,
I know like it sounds kind of like I'm blowing smoke up my own ass, but it's like I know that I could figure it out because it's like I know that I've been interested in music long enough. I have a little bit of a background in it. I know that I know that I actually have rhythm. Like I've always kind of wanted to, either learn how to drum or learn how to make beats and stuff because I do have an innate I do have an innate musical ability of some sort. I've just never
Mhm. I mean, you've got
pursued
the
it
voice of
long
an
enough.
angel.
I don't know about that. But yeah, it's
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I highly encourage this.
yeah, I there's really no excuse for me not to. I have pretty much most of the stuff that I would really need.
Mhm.
Obviously, well, that's not necessarily true. I mean, if I really got into it, it would become another thing that I become obsessed with and dump money into. But I have enough to at least learn and get started. And then I could then take that in several different directions. It's like I could, you know, uh, really pursue it and get more stuff, or I could just do it for fun. But
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm gonna have to send you the. I need to see if I still have it. I need to send you the little theme that I made. Um, that
Did you tell me about this?
I mentioned it around the beginning. It wasn't music that I did make some really shitty songs in GarageBand 10 plus years ago. I made one
Uh,
that Bianca always talks about. I just called it Blippy Crap. Um, but I was just using all stuff that they were sounds from the GarageBand packs that used to come in the program and stuff.
yeah.
Um, but I went to I found a bunch of free uh drum kit sites where it's like you can download all of these different drum samples in waveform. Um, so I have a ton of drum packs that I already downloaded. The problem is I couldn't actually figure out how to load the sounds into the hardware, and I just gave up for a year probably. I think I bought the thing about a year ago and I've barely
Yeah,
touched it.
yeah, I was gonna say. I remember the struggles of
Yeah. It was
like
I have
sticking
all these,
the
and then I was like, oh, wait, do they need to be MIDI if I want to be able to play them on the keyboard? Do they need to be in a MIDI format? And can I not plug
like regular samples.
wave samples in? And it got to be this whole thing of well, how do I actually, and it's basically the very first thing that you have to figure out of how to make the thing make the sounds that you want it to make. I got stuck at that point and then just gave up. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll kill it.
It's you
This is
it
why I avoid this kind of
when you
thing.
have all of this momentum coming into something and then you get stuck at the very first thing, it basically, and it's stupid, it just took the wind out of my sails really quickly.
Oh, I know. I mean, I've definitely felt this. You just you get locked up in the early because you're all excited. You have this energy to do something, and it all just kind of just drains out of your foot because you're
Yeah.
just sitting there going, "What the? How do the fuck do I do a software thing?" I hate that shit.
Yeah,
That's why I'm trying to get away
it
from computers.
I mean I actually I figured out how to use Well, kind of. I think I figured out how to use one program, but it was like uh I could but it was like it allowed me to like I think put some uh wave sounds on the pads, but I couldn't make anything loop and I couldn't get anything on the keys. And I was like so I accomplished about the absolute bare minimum that I could accomplish with it. And that was like my only victory was this one thing I did. It's just like I couldn't even record it, I couldn't loop it, I couldn't do anything. I could make it make some noises and that was about it. And that's as far as I ever got.
Oh my god! And I mean, I'm sure there's no lack of instructional,
Right.
you know,
There are just tons
videos
and
and stuff.
tons of like tutorial YouTubes out there, but the other problem became holy shit, there are like a dozen different DAWs that you can use,
Yeah.
and these programs are so kind of innately uh kind of complicated. You know, it's like there's so many different things that you can do and so many different things that you can tweak that basically whatever program you decide on, you're probably going to spend dozens and dozens of hours in that program learning it and figuring it out. So then it
Mm.
becomes this kind of case of analysis paralysis. We're just like, okay, so what program do I want to dump tons of time into as I try to learn it?
Yeah.
You know, and that's the problem with a lot of the way that I approach stuff because it's like, I mean, we're like in a couple of months we're probably going to be playing a second D&D campaign, and so I started working on a new character sheet, and Jesus fucking Christ did I spend like so long making every like just every single decision that I needed to make. I spent so
Hmm.
long on like thinking and rethinking, and that's just it's the way that I approach far too much shit is to just like overthink instead of just like fucking pick something, dive in, start fucking around and
Oh,
figure it out.
totally.
Like,
That absolutely kills momentum.
yeah,
Sometimes just thinking about it kills it, but like definitely overthinking. Like if you pause long enough to go, I want to, because like I suffer from the same, like, I want to do this smart. I want to be like,
yeah,
I'll be prepared, do my research, like do it the smart way. I don't want to get caught some point and like the last thing I ever want to do, maybe you share this with me, but like that is to like get to a point where I'm like, oh shit, I should have thought of that.
yeah,
But I'm
yeah,
trying to mitigate that by just forcing myself to just like start things and like jump in, not even knowing what I'm doing sometimes, and just like, because I've done that, we've all done that. Like you just, before we were fucking like looking for, able to do so much research, or before there was so much stuff to be had out there that, on everything, just like, it's just good to like have a finite kind of scope, I think, or just like have the, like maybe not even have the option to have to be able to go learn about every single facet of a single thing of a thing before you get into it. I don't know. I'm telling you, I say it every time. I always try to look for the, it's on my wall somewhere. Oh, there's ad hocism. That's what it's a, that's what it's about for me. Ad hocism. No thinking, just jumping in and doing it. I am fully trying to embrace that.
yeah.
Um,
I think you're on the right track there.
and I'm only doing it
Had I
because I
just
know what.
stuck with one, you know, it's like had I just fucking decided I'll try this and then
Yeah,
spent a couple of hours just looking up tutorials on that one thing,
yeah,
I I'm sure that I would have made some sort of progress at some point.
Right. Or
But
imagine it's the thing like somebody just gave you, hey, here's a pad, and like I don't know, it came with the software.
right.
Then you're like, okay, well that's the one. I'm just gonna use that. Um,
And that's
forcing
part
the
of one of the reasons why I wish that like it was still more hardware based, is because there wouldn't be that, it wouldn't be like, okay, well, what do I use? It's like, well, the fucking machine, the hardware is, that's your choice. It's like you put shit on like disk and those are the sounds that you can make with it. It's like, it's, and I know that it's more complicated than that, but it's like, there isn't nearly as much decision making involved. It's like the
yeah,
decisions are what sounds do you want to load on it. Everything else is just it's in the hardware.
yeah. There you go.
There you go.
That's your way through.
Yeah.
You just make
Um,
yourself choose something. I'll choose for you.
that I'd be fine with that.
Flip a coin.
um,
Uh,
so I'm actually my throat is actually, I think this is probably the most I've talked in a while.
yeah.
But let's
Um,
bring the train into the station. What
yeah. Yeah. I should have mentioned actually. I was going to mention at the beginning. Uh, I got something in the mail today from
Ooh.
a listener,
Oh shit. The mail.
and zine maker from True Zine Marin. Hello, True Zine Marin. I'm not going to use your name in case you're not,
Hi Truzine. Marin.
True Zine Marin is a listener, a great zine creator, and you know, cool cool person. So I got like some awesome. I'm gonna put these stickers up in my studio. There's some stickers here. I think I love that one. That's probably my favorite. It's gross, but I'm gonna put all these up. Um, and the zine is
Nice.
called, it's a little zine, and it's called, it's not like I'm never going to not be ungrateful. So I just want to say
That's
thanks for that,
fantastic.
and yeah, thanks for listening, and thanks for sending me random cool mail.
That is very,
It's
very
pretty
cool.
awesome. True, I've got a bunch of stuff from Truzy Marin over the years. So, oh, and I might as well just, it's just at Truzine Marin. So go find that. And by the way, we'll probably put this in the notes, but yeah, Tommy, who created the intro
Oh
music,
yes.
just probably just go to Sweatband Records, because that's like that's his label, and he's kicking ass over there. There's all kinds of amazing stuff on that label. Um, so go to sweatbandrecords.com and see all the cool shit, and including the Manxes there, and all kinds of other awesome bands. So
Very cool.
check it
Very,
out.
very cool. Yeah, and I have compiled some notes about the stuff that we talked about here. So want to know any more about the stuff that we rambled on about, check the show notes at monstarkandme.com. If you want to read Hunter S. Thompson's daily routine, or if you want to read some articles about intergenerational trauma, or listen to some of the music that we talked about, there are going to be a bunch of links in there as
Awesome.
well. Um,
That's that's new.
yeah.
Appreciate that. Thanks for doing all the work.
Oh, absolutely. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for
Yeah.
joining us, and we will be back soon.
thanks for powering through this noisy cooling unit next
I
to me.
still have not heard it. I have not heard it at all. I'm
Oh,
sure
it's
when I
there.
get your
You'll
actual
hear it.
audio,
Yeah,
I'll hear it a little bit,
yeah,
but
you'll hear it.
no worries.
But it helps. I'm still sweaty and fucking, you know,
Oh, and if
slimy
you listen to
and
this on
hot.
the
But
podcast and you want to re-listen to the whole thing from the very beginning, you can watch it on our YouTube channel.
that's right now, and you just want to watch.
Yeah, if you can
I'm
like
showing a little skin.
yeah,
Brian's got a cool hat on, which I'm not really sure what that
it's like a
says.
bear. It's a
Okay,
it's a bear
see,
with a crown.
cool. And I'm sporting a Gorguts shirt, so go listen to Gorguts too.
And I'm wearing a "Have You Punched a Nazi Today" T-shirt, available
Mm-hmm.
at hate45.com.
Yes. There you go. That's your week.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, that's it.
yeah. Until next time, you know, have fun out there.
Yes,
And
dance like nobody's silently judging you, even though there undoubtedly is, and that somebody might very well be me. All right, adios,
go out
everybody.
and hug people,
Yeah,
and unless they give you the stink eye like Brian would.
yes,
Yeah.
totally.
Thanks to everybody. Love you all. Take care of yourselves.
Alrighty, adios.
Laters.